Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for another video. I premiered this video exactly 1 year ago today, and since then it has grown to become the biggest video on my channel by miles. Whilst being a great video in my opinion, it does have several flaws. First of all, I don't showcase any of my magic items, traps or chase variants in that video, and all of those issues I plan on correcting with this anniversary celebratory video I'm making 1 year later. Today I will showcase the entirety of my collection in the order of which the games they came from, starting of course with Spyro's Adventure and then working our way up to Skylanders Imaginators with every game in between. All whilst I share stories behind how I got certain characters. Then at the end I'll finally add to the showcase with my magic items, traps, and finish with my current chase variants that I'm lucky enough to own, and it will all be in crisp and glorious 1080p HD, unlike the original collection video, mind you. So I hope you enjoy this premium collection showcase experience to celebrate the anniversary of my initial collection showcase video, mind you, and also it's beyond glorious, you could go as far to say, so much so that I was near enough at a loss for words right now. So we're going to start off with the Skylanders that don't really have much of a story to them besides the fact that I bought them at some point or another. So that starts off with, of course, Camo. Then we get to move on to Legendary Spyro. Then there's also going to be Series 1 Hex, who actually has both of her limbs attached, so that's quite rare and pretty cool of me, mind you. Then there's also Prison Break, followed by none other than Double Trouble. And then there's going to be Warnado right here, followed by Whamshell. Then there's Chop Chop, followed by, well, it was Legendary Chop Chop more specifically, but that would be followed by Legendary Trigger Happy. Then there was also Whirlwind. And last but not least, we have one Legendary Bash. Now I do actually remember my experience of buying this character, because basically I was at CEX, and when I bought him, the cashier was talking to me about Skylanders, about how he had his own collection, and that he felt like the Legendary Bash was so much more cooler than the original colour palette, which of course I agree with, and it was very cool to run into a cashier at CEX who had as much of a passion for Skylanders as I did, mind you. But now we get to move on to the Skylanders that all have a story behind them, and of course, since this is Spyro's Adventure, the starter pack characters, i.e. Spyro, Gilgrunt and Trigger Happy, all have the same story to them as the story that got me into Skylanders to begin with. So it was Christmas of 2011. Prior to the celebration, me and my sister made our traditional Christmas list that composed of my mum getting me and her a free Argos catalogue each, and then we'd cut out all of the toys and gifts from the Argos catalogue that we wanted and would stick these cutouts onto a sheet of paper and call that our Christmas list. But with my Christmas list, not only did I cut out the starter pack of Spyro's Adventure and glue that to the paper, that was not nearly enough. I also circled it several times and added many arrows pointing to the fact that Scarlet Spyro's Adventure was what I was most passionate about and what I wanted most. So Christmas Day finally arrived, and I was very grateful for the great many gifts that I got for that holiday season, including a Cars 2 orb puzzle based thing, which will come into account later on. But for now, what this concerns is the fact that Spyro's Adventure was the one thing that I didn't get, despite the fact that it was the thing that I wanted the most, and I wound up quite disappointed by that. But then my grandparents show up and give me a very specific shaped present. So when I start unraveling it, my pure excitement and adrenaline kicks in as I reveal that I got the Spyro's Adventure starter pack for the Nintendo Wii from my grandparents. I was ecstatic and loved them for it. So going from slight disappointment to utter joy made it one of the most memorable Christmases ever, because I got a gift that has lasted me over 10 years now, and one that I've been very passionate and have loved since then. Not 10 years, I meant to say 8, but as I digress. The very next day would have been Boxing Day, and my uncle also got me a Skylanders-based gift. It was the Dark Light Crypt, which of course contained a Ghost Roaster in it. So this was back when me and my dad used to play Skylanders together. Ghost Roaster very quickly became his personal favourite Skylander. And a few weeks later, this would have been drawn for New Year, so all the way back in 2012. For Christmas, I also got £20 in Christmas money, so I wound up spending half of that on a single Skylander, that being Boomer. So at this time, Skylanders were very rare, so we checked out 2 different Tesco's and neither of them had a single Skylander in sight. So we finally managed to check out Argos, and they had one in stock. But the thing with Argos back then is that it was pretty random which character you got. You didn't actually know which Skylander it was going to be until you went to go and pick them up. So of course we ordered Boomer and then found out that was him once we collected him, mind you. Very exciting, and my first single pack Skylander, which I bought with half of my Christmas money. But after that, Skylanders didn't really start appearing again until March, so we had a complete dry season of Skylanders whatsoever and couldn't find any because all of the eBay haulers had bought them all up and were selling them for ridiculous prices online. But then, on one fateful day, Loughborough Argos had one Skylander in stock, and once my mum picked it up, turns out that was Dynarang. And this was a character that I bought with the other half of my Christmas money that I had been saving for the last 3 months in order to get a Skylander with. So that was pretty exciting. But on the same day, the second most local Argos was Colville. So Colville had one triple pack in stock, which just so happened to be the one concerning Eruptor, Chop Chop and Bash. So after my mum left Argos, a woman approached her and offered her £40 for the triple pack, despite the fact that it was worth 20 at the time. So it's effectively double what my mum paid for it, and she refused the offer, knowing that these pieces of plastic, so to say, were very rare and precious to me. So she held on to them because she knew I wanted them, and she knew that I wasn't going to be able to get any more for a while due to just how rare and hard to come by these toys wound up being. And I'm very grateful that my mum did such a thing, and she refused the offer despite the fact that it was literally double that she paid right now. So Bash, Chop Chop and Eruptor managed to join my collection, but I was still missing 2 elements, air and life. But one day I came home from school and there was a plastic bag waiting for me on the sofa. Well, it turns out my mum had gone to Argos to pick up an air and a life Skylander so that I could 100% the game. They came in the form of Sonic Boom and Stealth Elf, which me and my sister were ecstatic about because we each got one Skylander we were both really looking forward to getting. Stealth Elf for my sister and Sonic Boom for myself, although in actuality I actually enjoyed Stealth Elf much more. But yes, it was great to finally be able to 100% the game, but my Skylanders collecting didn't end there. So one day after school, my mum was at a car boot sale, and she called in my dad asking if he could ask me whether I needed either a Eruptor, which I didn't because I had that one already, or Wrecking Ball. Of course, I answered my dad saying that I needed Wrecking Ball, so my mum bought this character from a car boot sale for me, but this was just before my karate session that same day. So what wound up happening is that we were in the last 5 minutes of karate, where we had to basically sit bowing in silence and everything, but I was distracted during this whole celebration of the end of the lesson, you could say, if that makes any sort of sense. So I was distracted purely because my sister had came in with Wrecking Ball and was playing and fiddling around with him right in front of my very eyes to kind of divert my attention away from the ceremony that was going on at my karate class right now. So I just found it funny how I was distracted from karate because of this character, which when I got home even, I started playing with him and was pretty disappointed, unfortunately. But now we get to move on to the first Skylander I actually bought with my own money, Zap. So I was saving up pocket money for months, and then I was finally able to afford my very own Skylander, to which once again Skylanders were still quite rare, so I managed to get this one in Argos, and it was the last one left. So fortunately it was one that I needed, so I managed to get zapped successfully. I did attempt this previously when Argos at Colville once again had one in stock, but that was unfortunately dying around because it was random, so I had to wait another few weeks even until the Argos at Loughborough got a Skarner in stock, and that Skarner was Zap right here. But as I digress, towards May, Skarners were of course becoming much more frequent, and I went to Tesco once and they had a bunch of single packs, mostly of Double Trouble and Boomer. But they did have one triple pack in stock, which I really wanted because it looked so awesome, and that was a triple pack concerning these characters right here: Flameslinger, Drobot, and Stump Smash. So I practically begged my mum to get it for me, and she obliged, so she bought this triple pack for me out of the goodness of her own heart. That, and also she wanted me to do a few chores to earn it, so I wound up cleaning through the house, you know, hoovering, mopping, that sort of stuff. But in the end it was of course worth it because these are some awesome characters, and I'm very grateful that my mum picked those up for me. But if you ignore the Skarners at the back, which I started of course collecting together between this point and the start of 2015, I basically only had 16 characters at this point, which was halfway through the original cast. So this was a very exciting turnaround for my collecting business, especially in May, with Skarner's Giants having already been announced and right around the corner. But with that being said and done, we went to a barbecue of my mum's friends one day, and my mum gave me and my sister a challenge, and if we were to complete this challenge even, she would give us a reward. In my case it was a Skarner, and my sister's, I think she got this bead set or something like that. The point is, what we had to do is there was two gardens right next to us, so we had to go across one garden without touching the ground, and to do that we would just take the deck chairs, climb across them, and then once we got over one of them we'd just lift it up and put it back in front of us, then go to it and take one that we was previously on, but now we've moved on from it. We'll take that and put that in front of us again. So it's basically just a loop of taking deck chairs and doing that with it, in other words. But as I digress, we had to get across this garden in order to acquire a rose from one of the neighbours, but obviously we needed permission from both of the neighbours in order to invest in this challenge. But me and my sister were so polite when we went to the neighbour's house that the neighbour just gave us a rose right off the bat without us needing to even attempt the challenge. And because of how polite me and my sister were, my mum basically wound up rewarding us anyway. So originally I was supposed to be getting Whirlwind and Double Trouble, two single pack characters, but as we was walking down the grocery aisle we came across a triple pack which some kid had obviously moved, and that was including none other than Zook, Lightning Rod, and Cinder. So my mum said you can pick up this pack instead because I think it was only like £4 more at the time. So I managed to get an extra Skarner for an extra £4, and I had no problem with that whatsoever because these Skarners looked awesome and I couldn't wait to play as them. So yes, very interesting story behind that triple pack right there. And now we come up to my birthday of 2012. So this is before Skarner's Giants had released, because I think that released late October of that year. Meanwhile, my birthday was on the 2nd of October, so it was 2 or 3 odd weeks before Giants had came out. And I asked my grandparents for a triple pack involving Igknight, Camo, and Warnado. But as you can see from Warnado and Camo haven't already been mentioned, they were unable to get that triple pack. So instead, they managed to find me for Empire of Ice, which was very exciting indeed. It was my second adventure pack right after the Dark Light Crypt, so it was nice to finally have unlocked a new level in that game. But anyway, Giants was only a week away and I got £20 birthday money, so I could have saved that money and waited for Giants to come out so I could have got more figurines for that game. But instead, impatient 11-year-old me just had to get a Skarner then and there, so I wound up getting the Pirate Seas that of course came with Terrafin, and I ultimately wound up quite disappointed because Terrafin wasn't that great of a Skarner in my personal opinion, and neither was the level of Pirate Seas either. But as you can tell, I'm now only a few Skarners away from completing the collection. So between my birthday and Giants being released, we went to Blackpool during October. And we went into one of the Toy Masters where they had a bunch of Skarners stocked up, including one that I was looking for a while, Voodooed. So I got very excited, and my mum wanted to buy him for me because my parents like to buy things from holidays for us to remember the holidays by. So in that case, the Blackpool holiday of 2012 was Voodooed. So that's what I remember that entire holiday about, finding Voodooed at a Toy Master. But as I digress, we've now skipped over Giants entirely and are moving into the Swap Force area, so around the 2014 period. I only have a few Scarlets left that I still need, one of which is the first iteration of Drill Sergeant. Bearing in mind I had a primary school friend who, shall we just say, forged a lie about this character. He said he transformed into a train, which he kind of does with this design element up in front of him here, but he didn't transform into a fully fledged train, at least not the way how I thought he meant it. So it wasn't until I finally found this figurine that I could expose him for his lies, so to say. But regardless, I found him at in the Swap Force section even from Tesco, so I was with my grandparents at the time and they was generous enough to buy him for me. But yes, it was very strange to see a character all the way from Spyro's Adventure, a line which they was no longer manufacturing, in the Swap Force lineup, but he had a bunch of tape on his package, so I'm going to assume that what happened is that somebody had attempted to steal the figurine previously, got caught, and they were repackaging it up and forgot to put it back on the shelf until that point in time. But he was stuck behind a bunch of Stinkbombs, so it could have just been that nobody found him until I was the fortunate soul who did. But as I digress, my birthday of 2014 came up. I only needed 3 more Skylanders and one of them was Sunburn. So I organised a little birthday get together with me and my mates. We went to the cinema to see, I can't remember what film it was from 2014. But afterwards we went to the local CEX and I saw for Dragon's Peak on display for exactly £10. Now one of my friends had given me a birthday card and I knew that there was a tenner in it because she had said so before the movie even began. So I opened up the birthday card then and there to take the tenner out of it and pay for the Dragon's Peak. But regardless, with 2 Skylanders left, the thing that they had in common is that both Dark Spyro and Igknight were both available in the 3DS starter pack for Spyro's Adventure, but at the time it was still going for around 20 or 30 odd quid, and of course I didn't have that kind of money up my sleeves. So it wasn't until around the 2015 mark that I managed to find this for a really cheap price at one of my local exchange shops, which was selling it brand new for £8. I had exactly £7.90, but they let me off with 10 pence, so I managed to get a brand new 3DS starter pack which included the last 2 Skylanders I needed, Dark Spyro and Series 1 Ignitor. Very ironic how one of my favourite Skylander even from this lineup was the very last one that I got, alongside that Dark Spyro mind you. But yes, I was very excited to have completed the collection. And that basically does it for all of the stories as to how I got these 37 incredible characters from that original game. So without further ado, we're going to move on to Giants. So now we're going to move on to Giants, and just like I did with Spyro's Adventure, for the first Skylanders I'm going to show you are the ones which don't have any sort of interest and backstory behind them. I literally just bought them at one point or another. And those stories start off with Gnarly T-Rex first and foremost. Then we get to move on to Series 2 Cinder, which I didn't actually get in the starter pack because I got booster pack for Giants, but we'll get more into that later on. Then there's also the one, the only, the awesome legendary Ignitor. Then we also have Series 2 Lightning Rod, which I do remember getting him specifically from Morrison's, but that's about it really, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the only Skylanders that I got from Morrison's at that, because they sold them at higher prices than for norm you could say. But regardless, there's also Stealth Elf right there, Series 2 more specifically, as well as Series 2 Wrecking Ball right here. Then there is also one Series 2 Gilgarant, followed by one Light Core Shroom Boom. All this glorious glory, mind you. And speaking of glory, there's also Polar Whirlwind right here, who looks pretty fantastic. Then there's also Series 2 Drill Sergeant, who doesn't nearly have as interesting of a story as Series 1 Drill Sergeant, mind you. Then there is also Scarlet Ninja. Then there's also one of my least favourite characters from the lineup, Sprocket. Followed up by none other than a Series 2 Terrafin right here, who was in a lot of the trailers and promotion for Skylanders Giants. That was pretty cool. Then we have yet another variant right here, Granite Crusher. And then that's going to be followed up by regular Chill, who really surprised me because I was not expecting her to be as good as she was, but then I finally got around to buying her. and she was so much more better than I was expecting, hence the surprise. Then we also have one Series 2 Sonic Boom. Then there's also Series 2 Flame Slinger, followed by Series 2 Bash, followed by Series 2 Hex, once again one that isn't broken, so that's a miracle. Then there's also one Light Core Robot, followed by Light Core Bouncer. Sorry for the slight jump in the camera right there. Gonna put him towards the back if he doesn't want, if he wants to stop pointing his finger guns at Hex, that is. Then there was also Legendary Light Core Chill, which when I first bought her from CEX, there was a bit of damage around the neck area until eventually her head popped straight off, so this is a replacement figure. Then there's also one Light Core Prison Break. The Light Core used to promote, well, all the other Light Cores because he was such a powerful, he had such a powerful Light Core effect even. Then there's also Legendary Jetvac right here, followed by another awesome variant, Jade Flashwing. Then there's also Series 2 Slambam right here, followed by one Light Core Eruptor. Then we have Legendary Stillfilth right here. I was quite disappointed when she got announced as a Legendary because at first I didn't like her very much, but now I've grown to really enjoy Stillfilth. But then we also have one Legendary Slambam to go alongside his regular boring old iteration. I say the regular iteration is boring, that's a bit of a lie. But now we move on to everyone's favourite character, Jetvac, which I've picked up for 50 pence because A, he's Jetvac, and B, he's a starter pack character that nobody wanted, hence why he was only 50 pence. Then we also have Punch Pop Fizz. And last but not least, we have Series 2 Eruptor. So now we can move on to the exciting stories, which of course begins with Scarlet Giants and its day one release of the booster pack. So on day one, I was at school, so when I got home from school, I wasn't excited about Scarlet Giants because my parents weren't in, so I just assumed that they hadn't bought it for me yet. Completely neglecting to check out the little package on the sofa as I walked in. So I went straight to the dining table and started work on my Cars 2 puzzle orb that I got for the prior Christmas, which I mentioned about when I was talking about the Spyro's Adventure starter pack, mind you. But then my dad came in and pointed out the package on the sofa, and so once I noticed that it was Scarlet Giants, I immediately put down everything I was doing, aka that puzzle orb, to go on ahead and start playing Scarlet Giants, to which, when I first booted up the game, I started on hard difficulty, which after a while I realised that was a mistake with how slow and weak Trix was to start off with, so I bumped the difficulty back down to easy again. But with that, my birthday came up because not my birthday party. I've already mentioned that my birthday came up before Giants, which is the main reason why I got the Pirate Seas rather than waiting. But after Giants was released, which must have been 3 weeks after my birthday at this point, my birthday party came up, and my friend Edward, who I invited, bought me Series 2 Trig Happy. Now before this, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't buy the Series 2 iterations of Skylanders I already owned. I'd only get the Series 2 for Skylanders I never got during Spyro's Adventure. But then when Edward had gone and bought me Trig Happy for my birthday, I was just like, screw it, I'm gonna get every single Series 2, no matter how expensive it would wind up being, and man did it wind up being expensive. But unfortunately, with poor 11-year-old me not having much money, I wasn't really able to buy any Skylanders until Christmas came around, where my parents at Christmas bought me 3 Giants, which started off with Bouncer, Crusher, and of course Swarm, which was my favourite of the 4 that I got so far, and he basically stayed like that for the whole of time. Regardless though, for Skylander I really wanted that Christmas was Fright Rider, and it was the one character my parents didn't get me. But on Boxing Day, my cousin showed up with a package, well, a present I should say, more so than a package, and that present was none other than Fright Rider himself. So yes, it was very awesome of these cousins to get me for one Scarlet that I really, really wanted at Christmas. It blew my mind when I opened up my present, and it was for Scarlet that I wanted most of all. But then we move into around about February time. I was at game with my grandparents, and I noticed that they had one hothead in stock. So my grandparents were kind enough to buy him for me, but he wasn't the only Scarlet available at game at the time, because there was also Flashwing available, which was the Scarlet that my sister really wanted, so she requested that my grandparents buy the Scarlet for her. Of course, I got rather annoyed by this because I wanted to complete the collection by myself without my sister's aid in any way, so my sister kind of aided me, and getting me a pity Scarlet was really annoying to me, and we kind of argued over it. So moral of the lesson is, if your sister's gonna help you collect Scarlets, don't argue with her about it, especially not in front of your grandparents. That's mean and disrespectful to the elderly. But hey, my grandparents still bought us Skylanders in the future, mind you, so that was great, mind you. And that's not even my sister's Flashwing at this point. It's a completely different Flashwing that I bought for myself, so technically I own that Flashwing 100% these days. But regardless, I also had £20 Christmas money remaining, which I had saved up, and I finally decided it was about time to spend that at game, where if they had the Battle Cannon Battle Pack. I forget the name of the cannon, to be perfectly honest, but I do remember what Skylanders came in that pack. It was regular Shroom Boom and Series 2 Chop Chop. Now, the unfortunate tale about Series 2 Chop Chop is that unfortunately I lost him at one point, but one day I went into game and I saw that they had him pre-owned for $1.99, so I wound up replacing for Series 2 Chop Chop that I lost quite easily, in fact. But as we move on, I get to continue with my game stories, and the next one is going to involve these two Scarlets right here. So we went into game one day and we noticed that most of the Scarlets were labelled up buy one get one 50% off, whereas these two were labelled up buy one get one free. So I pick up both of these since my mum was willing to buy them both if they was on such a generous offer. But the customers in front of us had the exact same two Scarlets, and the cashier was being very, very disrespectful about it, because obviously these stickers were a mistake. They were meant to be buy one get one 50% off rather than buy one get one free. So for cashier and the customer are arguing and bickering about their own respective rights, and the cashier was not in the wrong here, okay? Some of the rights he was making up was clearly being made on the spot with his nervous breakdown, you could say. So ultimately he was being very, very disrespectful to this boy and their parents, who just wanted to buy these two Skylanders for him. And because of this, my mum told me to put these characters back. We weren't going to buy these characters after the customers in front of us were having such a big problem with them, especially with the cashier being so rude and disrespectful. And after that day, I never saw that cashier ever again, so I take it as he was fired, which is highly deserving, because no customer deserves to be treated that way by an employee. But as we digress, one day I went hunting for Skylanders with my parents around the whole of Loughborough, looking specifically for a Series 2 Bash. We found one of them at game, but what I was ultimately after was a Pop Fizz. So I said to my parents, can we go down Tesco and check if Pop Fizz is there? And they're like, yes, okay, but if they don't have Pop Fizz, you're going to have to deal with the Skylander that they have at Tesco, because we're not coming back here. So I took that risk, and then we got to Tesco and they had one last Pop Fizz left, so the risk paid off and I was able to get Pop Fizz. Well, I say I was able to, my parents bought him for me. From the kindness of their hearts, that was much appreciated. Anyway, next up is going to be Series 2 Double Trouble, which my friend actually sold to me for 50p. That's right, he was so desperate to get rid of Series 2 Double Trouble that he was willing to give him to me for a measly 50p, which I found lying on the floor before I had even got to my mate's house. Like, it was just lying there. I couldn't exactly return it because it didn't exactly have any sort of tracking equipment with it, so I could track down the one person who this random 50p belonged to. So of course I kept it and used it to buy this Series 2 Double Trouble off him. He probably would have charged me more if he knew I had more money at the time, but 50p for one Series 2 Double Trouble was especially great value at the time, and it's still great value now, to be perfectly honest. But as we digress, the next Skylander comes from Tesco, just like Pop Fizz did, but this time it was actually my grandparents who bought me Light Core Jetvac, sorry. And this Jetvac was the first version of Jetvac I ever managed to get my hands on, so it was very cool to get Jetvac for the first time, especially since I missed out on him because he wasn't in the booster pack, for regular iteration of him I mean, so yes, that was cool getting Light Core Jetvac all the same. I had a choice between him and Chill, so in retrospect, Chill would have been the better choice, but moving on to another great female Skylander, we have Whirlwind, who I remember so vividly because she was the first Skylander I ever ordered online, because on Amazon it was free shipping and only £5. So £5 for an entire Skylander back then was great value, so of course I ordered it from Amazon, and it arrived even in 2 days, so that was very, very great, and it was in perfect condition, so I was very, very happy about that online order. And since then I have made several online orders with CX in particular, and Light Core Pop Fizz here reminds me highly of CX's terrible ordering scheme, because basically CX are notorious for sending the wrong Skylanders that you order. So when I ordered Light Core Pop Fizz the first time, they sent me regular Pop Fizz instead. So I had to order a secondary Light Core Pop Fizz, tell the people at CX what had happened. It was a muddle up, and so if they sent me this Light Core Pop Fizz for free, I only had to pay shipping fees, so that was pretty cool of them. They didn't need to do that. Actually, they did. You know, you can't just send for the wrong item and not have some sort of compensation system in play, but still, most companies would not do that. And as I digress, this Skylander I actually found physically in a CX shop, and it was one of my first ever variants from Skylanders Giants, Molten Hot Dog, which when I saw him on the CX shelf, I internally screamed because he was so rare at the time, and he was only like £6, so that was an insanely awesome find for me to pick up. But anyway, next up comes a really interesting story. So the Skylanders were on sale at Game, and I really wanted the Scorpion Striker battle pack that came with Zap and Hot Dog, but at the time I didn't have enough money, so when I got home I immediately washed the neighbours' cars and managed to accumulate enough money to buy the pack. But what wound up happening is that when I returned the next day, the game no longer had that pack in stock, so I instead had to settle with a Thump pack. But hey, I was a-okay with this because it meant that I only did 2 more Giants in order to complete my Giants collection. And a few weeks later, my mate Edward's birthday was coming up, so he really wanted Prison Break for Series 2 iteration, more specifically because the posing is so damn cool. So we managed to find him at Game. He was hidden behind a bunch of Series 2 lightning rods. And we got him a few weeks before my mate's birthday party, where I would have obviously given the Skylander, or given him the Skylander even. So it was very hard for me to have this Series 2 Prison Break just sitting on my shelf and resist the urge to open it up and play with him myself. But luckily I did manage to resist, and Edward got his hands on Prison Break just fine. So now we're skipping ahead a couple more months once again, during the summer of 2013 it would have been, just before Swap Force was released, and I was getting a bit bored inside, you know, I was running out of things to do, so my parents went on ahead and bought me a Giant, which was half price at the time, so then they could keep me entertained for a few hours. So yes, that was very good of them, and it meant that I only needed one last Giant to complete my collection, which at the time was very, very rare. So I had to wait all the way until my birthday, where my parents, for a birthday present, bought me for the final Giant I needed, which was obviously Ninjini. Anyway, my birthday party for next year resulted in a very interesting find, but first we're going to talk about that birthday of 2013 still, where not only did I get Ninjini, but we also got Swap Force a few weeks later, and a pre-order bonus for Swap Force was Light Core Hex, so I was able to pick that up as a pre-order bonus even. But this Light Core Hex isn't the same as that one I got for the pre-order bonus, because that one broke, so this is a replacement. But as I get back to my birthday party of 2014, almost an entire, like, 11.5 months later, in fact there's no almost about it, that's exactly what it was, the same birthday party that I got Sunburn from afterward was when Edward had bought me none other than Series 2 Ignitor, because I really wanted him at the time. And so finally, After having received my first iteration of Ignitor, I started playing with this character and I fell in love with him instantly. At the time, because Swap Force was out during this time, Small Dash was my favourite character. So until I got this first iteration of Ignitor, Small Dash was my favourite. It's an interesting story about that. But as I digress, my most recent trip to Blackpool from October of 2015 hailed a very interesting find. So if you remember previously, I was talking about how I was unable to get the Scorpion Striker battle pack previously because it ran out of stock at Game and they never restocked it for whatever reason. But when I was at Blackpool, sorry about that, but when I was at Blackpool we went to a bit of a market, and on this market they had the Scorpion Striker available brand new for £3. So for the sake of £3, my parents did not mind buying me this pack, and so I was able to get this pack brand new for such a cheap price at the time. Like back in 2015, £3 for this pack was very, very valuable indeed, especially to me personally, who really wanted those figurines in specific. So now we've moved down to the final 3 Skylanders that I need from this collection. So 2 of them, in order to get them, I need to get imported because they were never released in Europe, and that is my very valuable and precious Series 2 Jobot and Royal Double Trouble. It was so insanely cool when these guys arrived in the mail because I was able to open up their packages. Series 2 Jobot I even did an unboxing for, and it was just so cool to see these figures. I did get Royal Double Trouble long before I did get Series 2 Jobot, but these were still bought around a similar time, and of course bought in a similar manner in the fact that I had to get them imported. One from, I think it was China, whereas the other one was from America. So now it has brought me to one final Skylander that I need in order to complete this collection, Light Core Chill. So one day when we was in Wellingborough, we went to one of the local CXs down there, and I managed to find a Light Core Chill. I would have bought her online if it weren't for the fact that she was completely out of stock, and the main reason why she was out of stock everywhere was because this at the shop was labelled as a legendary Light Core Chill rather than the regular iteration, so I wasn't going to be able to order her because the online store wasn't able to distinguish between the two. Quite hilarious that. But yes, I was able to pick her up for a really cheap price of £1.99 because the legendary Light Core Chill was cheaper than the regular Light Core Chill at that time. So once again I internally screamed, similar to what I did with Molten Hot Dog right there. Sorry, I kind of got a bit lost for words, but as I digress, I was internally screaming at that because I had finally completed my Giants collection after having found the one Skylander that I still needed, Light Core Chill. And even more interesting about that holiday yet in Wellingborough, it was also when I recorded my first ever collaboration. That was with Jap28 for the guest stars. That would be really awesome in Skylanders. So I'm going to play you a little clip to help commemorate that holiday now, but after that's played we're going to be moving on to Swap Force.
That's much better. How the hell can Sly see anything through those things? But either way, as you guys could probably guess from my custom-made Sly Cooper Imaginator that you saw on the intro right there, the guest star I'd personally choose for a Skylanders game is none other than Sly Cooper.
Everybody be cool. I'm on it.
So this is primarily because the first Sly Cooper game, known as Sly Cooper and Amphibious Raccooners, was my first ever video game of all time, so I kind of have a soft spot for Sly, you can say. But not only that, but he's acquired a lot of moves throughout his franchise history, meaning that he could make a very really diverse and really, really fun moveset. That would be a ton of fun to use, and on top of that, he could make a really awesome light figure thanks to the help of his cane and his statistics. And so this would mean that he would not only fit in with the cast of Skylanders but also add to it, and so that's personally why I definitely feel like this guy would make a great Light Ninja and should definitely be a guest star in whatever Skylanders games to come next.
So without further ado, we're going to be getting into Swap Force now, and we're going to be starting off with the Skylanders that don't have any sort of interest and story behind them as to how I got them. I literally just picked them up at some point or another. So that's going to start us off with a Light Core Flashwing, and might I just say that it's going to be very interesting to see if I can even squeeze all of these Skylanders in frame right now. But next up is going to be none other than legendary Light Core Grim Creeper. Then we move on to regular old Grim Creeper. Then there's also going to be Legendary Night Shift, another legendary mind you. Then we have none other than Punk Shock, one of my personal favourite cores in this game. It's unfortunate how she don't have some sort of awesome story to go alongside it, but regardless, next up is going to be regular Night Shift. I intended to get him in his double pack, but instead I just wound up getting both of the swappers in that pack, which I believe was Night Shift and Boom Jet respectively. So I got both of them solo, but as I digress, we move on to another legendary, that being Legendary Free Ranger. Then we have Phantom Cinder, which was originally going to be its very own episode of Skylanders Hunting, wherein I picked her up at CEX randomly one time, but then the video files corrupted and I weren't able to ever release that video. But as I digress, we have Free Ranger next. Then we have Luke's favourite Skylander, Roller Brawl, and she's one of my personal favourites too. Yet another Skylander just like Chill, which I wasn't all looking that forward to, but then when I finally picked her up, she blew my expectations out of the water. And speaking of water, we have Freeze Blade off the water element coming up next. Then we also have Rubble Rouser, followed by Big Bang Trigger Happy, now that the reposes have their very own unique name going in front of them rather than just being Series 2, 3, 4, etc. Actually, there was no such thing as a Series 4 in this game, but as I digress, we have none other than Light Core Countdown. Then we also have one Blizzard Chill, followed by Legendary Zulu. Then we also have Light Core Star Strike. No, that's regular Star Strike, the two look so similar that I can barely tell them apart, but I can guarantee to you that that is indeed regular Star Strike. And moving on, we have none other than Hoot Loop, followed by Enchanted Hoot Loop. Then we have Spyros, followed by Frino. One of the last characters I actually got in this game, because I got the Hogwild iteration long before I got that version, so I never prioritised getting that version of him, mind you. But next up we have Heavy Duty Sprocket, followed by Twin Blade Chop Chop. Then we also have Volcanic Lava Bath Eruptor, which I got him as part of the 3DS Starter Pack for the first time. Bit similar to how I saved for 3DS Starter Pack to get Dark Spyro and Ignited from Spyro's Adventure. But next up is going to be Super Cool Pop Fizz, showing his back towards the camera and getting that sweet old 360 degrees in. Then next up is going to be none other than Anchors Away Gilgrunt. Big oops. And then next up is going to be Jolly Bumble Blast. I was just pointing out to you guys right there. What can I say except you're welcome. But moving on, we have regular Fire Kraken. Then we next up have Lava Bath Eruptor. Then we have Mega Ram Spyro, who seems to be ramming his way onto the desk right now. Then there is regular old Magna Charge, which I picked up from CX just before I watched Finding Dory, mind you. The last film I saw at Odeon until I watched Dragon Ball last year. Anyway, then there's also Kickoff Countdown right there. Smolder Dash, who is a replacement from the CX at Leicester, because my original one kind of lost its flair, you could say. Then next up is going to be Springtime Trigger Happy. Then we have Trap Shadow, one of the very last swappers I got from this game, in fact one of the last characters period. Then we have regular Countdown. And last but not least, from the story, from the characters lacking a story as to how I got them, we have Enchanted Star Strike. Although I do remember buying a bunch of things from CEX and then walking into game and instantly regretting my purchases in CEX, because it meant that I was no longer able to afford Enchanted Star Strike, so I wound up returning all of my items to CEX in order to get my money back to pay for Enchanted Star Strike from game, mind you. and she was only $1.99 as well, so that was a bit of a bargain, mind you. But now we can finally move into the stories of the other Skylanders and move on to a bit of a timeline with those. So of course the first characters I got were the Skylanders from the starter pack, so that would include Washbuckler, Blast Zone, and Stealth Elf alike. Of course I also got Lightcore Hex on this day as a pre-order bonus for the game. Then next up, from my Blackpool trip in 2013, 1 year after I got the Voodoo, mind you, I was with my grandparents for this trip, and this time it was my grandparents who bought me Slobbertooth from a HMV at Blackpool, where he was £12 rather than £10 because HMV is overly expensive. But anyway, after that, with me not having much money to my name, I had to wait till Christmas to get more Skylanders, but fortunately for me, the haul I got from Christmas 2013 was my biggest Skylanders haul yet, with me receiving Lightcore Warnado, Lightcore Smolderdash, which is why she was my favourite until I got Igknight for the first time on my birthday of 2014. Then we have Sharpshooter Terrafin, which obviously I picked up alongside Bumble Blast as part of the Arcane not Arcane Crossbow, the Arcane Forge, if that's its name. Then I also got the Tower of Time, which of course included a cute little pop form right here. Then next up was a double pack. Now, up until this point, I wasn't interested in collecting variants, but then my parents got me the Nitro, Magna Charge, and Rattleshake double pack. So after this moment, I decided, screw it, let's be collecting variants as well. So let's pop them to the back right there. So I also got £20 for Christmas, and I remember just before Christmas I went to go to game and I found an Arcane Crossbow, which is the battle pack I wanted more than the other one. But when my parents went shopping, they said that they couldn't find it, so I knew that for Christmas I was going to be getting the other battle pack rather than this one. But what did it matter? Because after the new year I found an online store which had buy one get one free on all of the new Skylanders packs. So this was the whole of Wave 3, so I was able, with my £20 of Christmas money, to get me Wind Up, Camo, which was my very first illustration of Camo by the way, and Grim Creeper from the Arcane Crossbow and the Sheepwreck Islands Adventure and Battle packs respectively. So it was very cool for me to get buy one get one free on those. And because it was an online store only, once again I had them ordered in, but it didn't take all that long, so that was quite impressive. Now the next story involves Game. What happened with Game is that I went in one day and they had a restock of all sorts of new Skylanders, including Lightcore Whamshell. Now my attention was drawn to the Skylander when there was someone in the store yelling about how, oh man, my favourite character from Spyro's Adventure gets re-released and I don't have the money. Although they didn't say just for money, they included the effing word in there as well. But as I digress, I looked all over the store and I couldn't find a secondary Lightcore Whamshell because this kid was kind of like holding on to the other one. I didn't want to ask for him to give it to me if he weren't going to be able to pay for it. But in the end I started looking behind a few of the other packs and it turns out this guy was hiding behind a bunch of Lightcore Warnados. So unfortunately I was £2 off getting him with my own money at this time, so my mum just said screw it, for the sake of £2 I will give you that money and you can buy the character. So that's how I got my first ever version of Whamshell, and that's why I was so desperate to get him, because I didn't own him up until that point. Then next up we have Scorp, which once again is a character that I bought with my own money. One time I was at my grandma's and I got a bit bored because all of my electronics had died out, so I decided to make the decision to walk up to the local Tesco and pick this character up. Then we have Doomstone. Now when this guy was first released they had offers going on at Game for swappers at half price. Now at the time I didn't buy him because basically my dad was encouraging me to save up all of my pocket money for a PS3. So it was actually my grandma who came in with me for the following week who bought this guy. But remember, his packaging was so loose that I actually threw the packaging up and it completely split, and the figurine went flying, you could say, so I had to pick him up immediately. And my grandma wasn't very impressed, she thought it was my fault somehow. Anyway, I went on another holiday to somewhere in Scotland, I can't remember its name, but there was a game there where I was able to pick up Stinkbomb, once again for half price. My dad bought it for me, so that then I had something to entertain me once we got back to the caravan site, mind you, because this in the caravans we had electricity, so I was able to play Scarlers and everything. So next up are 3 Scarlers that I was able to get for buy one, get one free. So I got all of these figures, well they weren't only buy one get one free, they were half price as well. So I got all of these for about £9 I think it was. So it started off with Light Core Star Strike, then we got Dunebug, followed by Zulu, and then last but not least we got Riptide. Now all of these were from Game, and we're going to stick with Game because this is the same store just on a different day. I went to their pre-owned section and they had all 5 Dark Scarlets available in pre-owned, bearing in mind that they had the 3 for 2 offering back then. So I was able to pick up these and the Series 1 Warnado, which I just quickly breezed over during my Spyro's Adventure collection breakdown. And so they of course included Dark Spyro, well, Dark Mega Ram Spyro more specifically, Dark Blast Zone, Dark Washbuckler, Dark Slobbertooth, and finally, last but not least, Dark Stealth Elf. So yeah, that was very, very cool, and even better yet, I had now got the PS3, and this was just before Trap Team was released. So Trap Team finally came out, I got my starter pack, but the PS3 was from eBay, and it was incredibly faulty, and because of that, it would basically turn off every 5 minutes, so I weren't able to beat Trap Team very effectively. And that was very disheartening for me at the time, you know, day 1 Trap Team, and I weren't able to complete it because my PS3 was faulty. But that still didn't stop me from getting Scarlers at the time, because I went into CX and found a really cheap Scarlet that October in the form of Gorilla Driller. And I remember this guy so vividly because I was so disappointed I couldn't play with him on the Trap Team game. But one day I went to my cousin's and realised that in the Wii version of the starter pack you got a code that allowed you to download the Trap Team Wii U version for free from the eShop. So I utilised that code to basically get the whole game on my Wii U for free, and then my PS3 portal from the PS3 starter pack I bought was transferable over to the Wii U. All of this was not in October, it was way after Christmas when I got the Wii U, Christmas of 2014 mind you. And that's ultimately what led me to finally be able to play with Gorilla Driller, and I was very disappointed, unfortunately. Anyway, next up comes Scratch, because I was mentioning previously about Christmas of 2014. I effectively got Gorilla Driller before Christmas 2014, but I had to wait till after Christmas of 2014 to finally play him. But Scratch, however, I saw at a CEX, and at the time she was very rare. So what my mum did even is she bought this character for me from CEX, and then I had to wait for Christmas until she actually gave me the figure. So that's an interesting story in and of itself. Now the next figurine is Rattleshake. Now when I bought my Scarlet Trap Team starter pack, they put me up for a club card. And basically the Scarlet's club card meant that if you bought a certain number of Scarlets, then you'd get Quick Draw Rattleshake for free. So that's exactly how I got this guy. I got this guy for absolute free after I bought, I think it was 15 other Scarlets. Anyway, so the next few stories take place very recently actually. Firebone Hot Dog I was incredibly dedicated to getting because I saw him at the pre-owned section in game, and at the time I didn't have any money, so well, I did have the money, it was just in my wallet which was at home, so I decided, hey, let's cycle home so I can grab my wallet and pay for this guy from a pre-owned section at game. But on my way home, I fell off my bike, cut myself open, and had to stay at my grandma's in order to patch that up. Which ultimately was a great decision in the end, because my grandparents gave me the money in order for me to go back into town and pick this guy up from pre-owned. And there's a whole Scarlet hunting video documenting this dedication, so that's very special to me as well. So next up, we're moving all the way to Imaginators, where there was a Champions pack involving Zulu, which you can see all the way back here, and of course these two characters, Hyper Beam Prison Break and Hornblast Whirlwind, which I managed to pick up that Champions pack for £5. So at the time, like, these two figurines combined were more than a £5, so paying for those via that Champions pack was definitely a wise decision on my behalf. But next up, we have Light Core Bumble Blast. Now one day I was looking at job lots of Skylanders on eBay, and one job lot included this guy for a $5, buy it now. And obviously the seller didn't know the individual value of this character, since he's valued at like about 15 quid alone. So I got very lucky with that job lot, with a very naive seller that obviously didn't know that he was worth more than what the entire job lot was. So I got very happy and very lucky with my Light Core Bumble Blast. But that really does show you that the greatest way to collect Skylanders these days is with patience. Anyway, in yet another Skylanders Hunting video, I was able to pick up Boom Jet from another CX. After I traded in a few things, I was able to afford this character. And then we have Jade, Fire Kraken and Turbo Jetvac right here, which a friend of mine named Flynn was kind enough to give to me, because he bought these back when they first came out, and then I went to his house one time and he just gave me all the Skylanders that I needed, which included these two characters. That was very kind and very generous of him, and I've appreciated him for it ever since. So this brings us to our final Skylander of the collection, which is Nitro Freeze Blade. So I actually got this guy quite early on because a cousin of mine owned this character, but after he stopped getting into Skylanders as much, I basically offered him a trade, so I gave him some PS3 games in exchange for this Skylander. But basically his parents, I did it without their consent, and they basically forced me to give him the Skylanders back, and I of course got my PS3 games back from all of this, so I lost my Nitro Freeze Blade and had to buy another one from CX, which unfortunately took so long because it took them a really long time to get this guy in stock for whatever reason. But I finally got him and completed my Swap Force collection on the very day that he arrived. So yes, very exciting collection list that barely fits in frame. That's going to make Trap Team pretty hard considering it's an even bigger collection. So now with that cut out of the way, we're as always going to be starting off with the Skylanders from the Trap Team line that don't really have any sort of interesting story behind them, besides the fact that at some point I would have bought them. So we're going to be starting off here with Legendary Jawbreaker once again, getting that awesome 360-degree showcase because some idiot, aka me, started with the back of him. But moving on, we have another tech Trapmaster, even in the form of Gear Shift. Then we have mini little excellent wee Ruptor. Then there's Nitro Crypt King and all of his glorious glory. Next up is going to be mini little Thumpling. Then there's going to be Trailblazer, one of the most disappointing cores unfortunately. Then there's also Enigma, one of the coolest Trapmasters. Next up we have Love Potion Fizzy Frenzy Pop Fizz, quite the name that one. Then there's also Mini Ginny, and Enigma's fallen over. Then there's also going to be Spry, followed by High Five, easily my favourite of the designs of the free-to-lay Skylanders, but my favourite overall I would say is probably Batspin, even if her name is kind of weak, but we're going to get to the other free-to-lays later on. For now we're going to go back to Blades, Legendary Blades to be more exact. Then we also have Gnarly Barkley right here, and there's also Small Fry right here. Followed by Power Punch Petvac, a name that totally rips off the name of Punch Pop Fizz, mind you. Then next up we have Treadhead, another awesome core from this game. Then we have Nitro Head Rush right here. Followed by not only Legendary Deja Vu, but regular Deja Vu as well. It's almost like I had a sense of Deja Vu right there. Regardless, next up is going to be none other than Wee Ruptor. Then we also have Trigger Snappy, followed by Thunderbolt. Then next up we have King Cobra Kadabra, followed up by Eon's Elite Whirlwind. Then we have the meme himself, Rocky Roar. Then we have regular Head Rush, which also came as part of a trade I made with my cousin when I traded for PS3 games for Nitro Freeze Blade, but this one for parents let me keep. It was just for Nitro Freeze Blade specifically that he wanted back because that one was more valuable at the time, but Head of a Shower he couldn't care less about. But moving on to Flipwreck right here, yet another free-to-lay Scarlet, which I think sits right in the middle, in terms of the designs anyways. Then we have Blaster Mine, a very disappointing Scarlet. I bought him, so excited to play as him, and then I started playing as him, and he was very boring. Anyway, moving on, we have a Full Blast Jetvac. Hopefully I'm not butchering these names as much as I am butchering for camera. Sorry, I kind of jolted it a bit right now. But next up is going to be Drobit. Then we have Tough Luck, which I bought at the same time as I did regular Magna Charge when I went to go and see Finding Dory. Go on, Tough Luck, you can fit in there, and if you can't, that's just Tough Luck. But moving on, we have Nightmare, which I actually got nice and cheaply from CX. Was able to get her whole pack for £20, which is really cheap for her pack, even to this day. Anyway, next up is going to be Rigorol Crypt King. Then next up we have Eon's Elite Chop Chop, followed by I Small. Then we have another Eon's Elite Gilgrunt specifically, followed up by Hijinks. Then we've got Wallop. Then we've got for Mini Little Gilrunt, which I of course got in the same pack as Thumpling, followed by Fling Kong, or as Fling King I sometimes accidentally call him. But yes, luckily moving on, all of the next Skylanders have some very exciting stories to them, including my day one haul, which of course involved the starter pack characters. Not only for them, however, but I also picked up Bushwhack on day one, but I saved £30, which is going to be important for slightly later on in the story. But yes, I got the PS3 starter pack because I'd only just bought up my PS3 after having saved up for it during the Swap Force era. But I got through the first 5 levels and then my PS3 just kind of died and wouldn't turn back on, and when it did, it only stayed on for like 5 minutes, so I wasn't really able to get through much of Trap Team. So that was quite disappointing, especially when I had £30 left and was able to get 2 triple packs. You heard me right, 2. Starting off with the triple pack involving Torch, Gilgrunt and Blades, because that was £15 at the time. And then I also managed to get the triple pack that was also £15, containing Chopper, Funny Bone and Sure Shot Shroom Boom. So that's pretty cool. But unfortunately I still weren't able to play these characters until Christmas. So at Christmas my Skylanders, my parents even, unfortunately didn't bring me any Skylanders. I almost got that the wrong way round. But then my cousins showed up and they had bought me 2 Skylanders yet again, which I really wanted. And I say yet again because these are the same cousins that bought me Fright Rider back when I really wanted him. And the 2 that they bought me were Fist Bump and Wildfire. So yes, it was very cool of both of them to buy these 2 for me. Clearly they had read my mind and knew exactly what Skylanders I had wanted at Christmas. Either that or my parents told them, but I prefer to have the idea that they're sidekicks. And I say I was actually able to play them, that's because at Christmas I visited the same cousins where I was able to get the download code of Trap Team for my Wii U, because he got Skylanders Trap Team on his Wii that Christmas, mind you. But as I digress, that Christmas I also got £40, so I was able to get Jawbreaker alongside yet another triple pack, because Trap Team was when I started caring about triple packs again. And this triple pack contained none other than Cobra, Kadabra, Bat Spin and Hogwild Frino, which is why I got this version of Frino before I did the regular version. Anyways, so the light and dark characters have just came out, and I see all of them plastered around the section of game. So rather than picking up any of the light or dark Skylanders, I decided to pick up Echo. Yeah, I know, bad decision. But it didn't matter, because a few weeks later I was with my friend Luke and I saw that someone was trading all of their Skylanders to game. So for Christmas of 2014 I got this nice little saving cup, which basically meant that when you put money in you couldn't get it back out until you used a tin opener to open it up. And when I saw that Blackout was available at the game, I ran home immediately with Luke. We opened up the tin, got a bunch of money out, and then went back to game in order to get this Scarlet from their pre-owned section. So they literally sold it in a matter of hours. But yeah, sure, I'm glad I managed to save up plenty of money in that tin. And I'm going to talk about 2 of the Scarlets I got during that hunting trip later on, because this was during the Superchargers era. But what else did I get during the Superchargers era? Well, I bought the Dark Starter Pack from Scarlet's Trap Team, or for Scarlet's Trap Team even, from CX, and this was for the Xbox 360. But what was hilarious about this Dark Starter Pack is that it came with the French version of Scarlet's Trap Team, so now I only have Scarlet's Trap Team on Xbox 360 in French. It doesn't have any other language attached to it, so quite hilarious how I was able to buy a French version of the Starter Pack. And if I was to go in now to trade it back in, they wouldn't allow me to trade it back in because it's French, despite the fact that they were the ones who sold it to me originally. Not that I've attempted that because I love the dark characters a bit too much. Anyway, I remember getting Fizzy Frenzy Pop Fizz so vividly even, because I got them in the same episode of Scarlet's Hunting as I did trying to make that inspirational speech to the community a few years back. That went well, didn't it? But as I digress, on the same day I went to Leicester, I returned home and found Eon's Elite Trigger Happy, which was my first Eon's Elite from Trap Team to even collect. So that's why I remember this Trigger Happy specifically so fondly, and that's why I also remember that episode of Scarlet's Hunting so fondly as well. Anyway, next up is going to be Kaboom, which I got for £3 from Home Bargains. I went into Home Bargains one day, noticed this guy, and saw the price tag at £3. I was shocked and so happy to receive such an awesome Scarlet for such a cheap price, mind you. Anyway, now we return to the Scarlets that Flynn gave me. So you saw beforehand that he gave me Jade, Fire, Kraken, and Turbo Jetvac, but he also gave me, free of charge, Lobstar, the whole of the Sunscraper Spire expansion pack, which of course involved Nightlight. So a 60 quid pack I got for free. I felt very fortunate and showed a lot of gratitude towards him. We've been very great friends ever since. Like, we was great friends before he gave me the Scarlets, but then he gave me the Scarlets and we was even better friends. Anyway, on top of that, I also got myself Bop and Terabyte from him, so very, very cool there. Anyway, next up, we have another CX find of mine, Spotlight. So I went into CX one day and saw this character was on their store shelves for £8. And I was so happy. Once again, I was internally screaming. Such a rare Scarlet of such a cheap price, and locally, so I don't need to pay no shipping fees or nothing. And it was the only Spotlight that they had in stock in the country at the moment, and it was at my local CX. I was so unbelievably happy. I about screamed then and there in the store. But moving on, I actually got my versions of Breeze and Petvac imported from Germany, because even though they had a really high shipping fee, they were still cheaper than getting them from the UK, mind you, so that was a good deal right there. Anyway, when it comes to Bushwhack, I did just buy him off CX randomly one day, but this was on the online store. And what's so hilarious about this guy is that I accidentally ordered in 2 of him by, well, literally by accident. I said that to begin the story with. And so now I own 2 versions of this guy because I accidentally put in 2 quantity into my shopping basket when I ordered this character, so very stupid mistake on my behalf. But anyway, next up we have Shortcut, which I went to for CX in Leicester to pick up, and a few weeks after that my local CX got about 2 in stock, so not that the trip to Leicester was a waste of time because it made for a very interesting hunting video, mind you. But moving on, it's also the same trip where I got my replacement Smoldered Ash. We got Gusto and Barkley, which I got when I bought the 3DS starter pack for these characters, again from CX, so very intriguing there. And once again, they were 2 Scarlets that I refused to buy until I got that 3DS starter pack, just like Igknight and Dark Spyro, looping back to that. Anyway, these next few Scarlets were the final Scarlets that I needed to complete my entire collection. Not my Trap Team collection, my entire collection. And that of course started when I ordered a dual pack, so I got a spare Barkley as well as the Whisper Elf from Trap Team. And these were all made on one of the final episodes of Scarlet's Hunting, because I also ordered me one Eon's Elite Spyro, one Eon's Elite Terrafin even, if of course my camera even wants to focus on this guy's glossy finish right there, one Eon's Elite Eruptor, And finally one Eon's Elite Stealth Elf, but that literally does it for my Trap Team collection, and surprisingly they've all managed to fit on frame quite well, so that's gone and shocked me. But what also doesn't shock me is the fact that my camera is currently running really low on battery, so I'm going to charge it up and then I'll see you guys back here for the Superchargers collection. So here we are with my Skylanders Superchargers collection, and as always we are just going to blaze through for figurines that don't have any sort of significant story behind them. It's just that I somehow picked them up somewhere along the road. Road, do you get it? Because Superchargers is all about driving, and you drive on roads. I'm funny. But as I digress, we're going to start off here with the burn cycle. Now if the lighting is slightly different, that's because whilst my camera battery was charging up, I had to wait overnight, so this is currently the next morning that I'm filming this, mind you. But next up we have Thrillipede, a pretty rare find for all of you Americans out there, but for us in Europe it was so much more easier for me to get him since I got him at a local CX shop, mind you. Got a bit lost for words right now even. But next up is going to be the Stealth Stinger with all of its awesome details and everything. I've also cleared up more room on my desk because clearly I was needing it. Superchargers is a huge collection, mostly because the vehicles are so big. But next up is going to be none other than Mistletoe Dive-Clops, followed by the Tomb Buggy right here in all of its glorious glory. I love the fact that you can drive these vehicles around. It's very cool that rather than giving them bases, they put the NFC chips inside of them. But as I digress, our next Skylander is going to be Splat. Then we also have the Power Blue Gold Rusher right there. I can barely kind of squeeze it down there, mind you. So next up is going to be the Supercharger combination right there with Power Blue Double Dare Trick Happy, which is also quite a mouthful in terms of variants names. So following him up is going to be none other than Smash It, and of course those two were a Supercharger combination, which is why I made that mention even. So next up is going to be regular Dive-Clops right here, so we can go right next to his Mistletoe counterpart. Then we also have legendary Hurricane Jetvac. Don't know what was so special about Jetvac to warrant him getting 2 legendaries, but here we are. And speaking of Hurricane Jetvacs, we have the regular iteration right here. Then next up we have none other than High Vault, followed by my least favourite vehicle, unfortunately, the Thump Truck. And then next up is going to be the Dive Bomber. Gonna put that right next to the Thump Truck. Following that is going to be yet another sea vehicle, the Splatter Splasher. Then we have none other than Igknight Thrillipede. Unfortunately, the name in this pun isn't nearly as exciting as the writers thought it would be. Ha ha ha. But moving on, we also have one Dark Turbocharged Donkey Kong, followed by Lava Lance Eruptor, followed by Big Bubble Pop Fizz, followed by the Soda Skimmer. Once again we have the vehicle coming up right after its Supercharger. Next up is going to be Bone Bash Roller Brawl right here. If of course Sheaf wants to squeeze in along with the other characters, her hair is kind of getting him away. But moving on, we have the Shield Striker, or is it Shield Shredder? I don't know, I always get the two mixed up. Like, why did they choose such damn similar names? But next up is going to be none other than Fiesta, followed by this Golden Hot Streak, which was from eBay for £16 approximately, and a very good price for such a rare vehicle, and it's so damn cool that it's golden game as well. I love that in-game translation. But next up is going to be the Nitro Stealth Stinger. Following that up is going to be none other than legendary Bone Bash Roller Brawl. Then next up we're going to have the Power Blue Splatter Splasher, followed up by the Dark Barrel Blaster. Then we're also going to have the Spring Ahead Dive Bomber. Then up last but not least, So now we get to move on to the characters that do have really exciting stories behind them, and so first of all is going to be the Scarlet Superchargers Dark Edition Starter Pack for the Xbox 360. So I did get these in day one, and that would obviously include Spitfire, well Dark Spitfire more specifically, Dark Super Shot Stealth Elf right here, then that would also include the Dark Hot Streak, and finally for Dark Sea Shadow. But on day one I also managed to pick up Steel Plated Smash Hit from Tesco because it was like £13, so it was very cheap and I really wanted that variant at the time. And then I also got the Sky Slicer. My mum bought me for this when we went to go and get the Dark Starter Pack, so that then I could 100% the game right off the bat. But anyways, what makes this story so interesting is that for Dark Edition for Xbox 360, when I went to go and pre-order it, I actually wanted for Wii U Edition, but my local game had ran out of pre-orders for that, so I weren't able to get the Wii U Edition, most unfortunately. So my mum jumped in and asked if they had any Xbox 360 instead. They said yes, but I wound up getting confused by the fact that I didn't own an Xbox 360 at that time. So my mum, once we got out of the store and I confronted her about it, being like, but I don't have an Xbox 360, my mum said, your cousin's getting it you for your birthday. And then I'm like, wow, that's so awesome. And that's because these are the same cousins that bought me for Christmas Fright Rider, Wildfire and Fist Bump years prior. So it's so damn cool that they was giving me an Xbox 360. It's very, very funny how that was spoiled to me because of Scarlet Superchargers and game not having the Dark Edition for Wii U, mind you. But as I digress, Game was having a big sale one day, and so all of their triple packs effectively were only £3. So I was able to pick up one of them concerning the Jetstream, the Shark Tank, and the one, the only Shark Shooter Terrafin. And these were so cheap at only £3 each that I actually had to confront one of the staff members to double check that these were actually £3 before taking them to the till. But regardless, I also managed to pick up on that very day the Sea Racing packs that came with Deep Dive, Gilgrunt, and of course the Reef Ripper right here. Very cool, and I love the fact that once again you get the opportunity to play around with that. But moving on the same day that I got my pre-owned Blackout that I was talking about during Trap Team, I also managed to pick up two Superchargers, one of which was none other than Stormblade, and the other was Nightfall, so that's very, very cool. I got two Dark characters on the same day. So next up, I went to Tesco one morning and they had all of the starter packs for £21, which was incredibly cheap, so I wound up picking up on that day the regular Wii U starter pack, which of course came with Super Shot Stealth Elf, the Barrel Blaster, and Turbocharged Donkey Kong, as you can see right there, with his smug little smile. But moving on, one time from CX I did an online order for the Land Racing pack, but they accidentally sent me instead for Legendary Iteration, which of course included for Legendary Sunrunner and Legendary Astroblast himself, and these were more expensive from the store at the time, so I was rather quite happy to have been sent these by total accident. Of course I still needed regular Astroblast, but that's going to come into play later on. For now we're going to look back towards the beginnings of Scarlet Hunting, where one of the very first finds I got was none other than Frightful Fiesta, in the pre-owned section even from Game. And in that very same episode I was also able to pick myself up the Nitro Soda Skimmer. The choice at the time was either the Nitro Soda Skimmer or Thrillipede that you see back there, but either way I was going to wind up with them both, so that decision right then and there didn't exactly change the course of my hunting career, you could say. So no regrets. But as I digress, in what was originally the third episode of Scarlet Hunting, where I went to Nottingham with Luke for the first time, that has since been added onto the first episode, I managed to pick up this guy at that said Nottingham trip, and I remember getting this guy very specifically because Luke told me that you're never going to get anything rare, and then literally that same hunting trip I got some pretty rare Skylanders. Not only did I get Big Bubble Pop Fizz, but I also managed to get on that trip E3 Hot Streak. But what was really ironic about this is that a few weeks later, Games sent me this same figurine brand new in the box, so I wound up selling the brand new version for it on eBay for about 100 quid. So I turned a nice profit with that, especially since this pre-owned figure cost me about £7 from a store, so technically that's like a £92 profit right now. So now let's be popping them in with the rest of the crew. And moving on to the Crypt Crusher, which I got in another episode of Skylanders Hunting, the very same one as I got Boomjet from, mind you. Then next up, we went to Leicester, and by we I mean me, and I went to Smith's Toy Superstore specifically. That was absolutely topped with Skylanders for a Grave Clobber, but that was where I managed to pick up the regular Sky Racing pack, so I got regular Astro Blast and regular Sunrunner, so I finally managed to pick those up and add those to my collection as well. But next up is going to be the hunting trip just before my black belt grading. There was no better way for me to prepare my black belt for my black belt grading even than to go hunting for Skylanders, and I managed to find myself one regular Spitfire and regular Hot Streak, which I both didn't own at the time, on the pre-owned section at Game. And then I was also able to pick up a Sea Shadow for, I think it was $1.99 at the time, because Imaginators had came out and he was really trying to get rid of these vehicles. And one time I also managed to pick up the Buzzwing from CEX for about a £5 I think I paid for it, and this was the same hunting trip that I got Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for. It's a very cool find right there. And then one other trip I went to Leicester, this is once again another Skylanders hunting video, to pick up a shortcut from their local CX, and I also managed to pick up on that very day a Power Blue Splat. What was really funny about this is that they brought out a tub of Skylanders. They just had a bunch of them, and I was looking for the Skylanders which I had asked to purchase, and when it came to Power Blue Splat, I saw one in the tub that was completely missing her weapon altogether, and I was a bit worried that this was the only one they had in stock and I'd have to redact the purchase and get her online, you know, so I could get a figurine in good condition. But as I kept looking through the box, they had additional ones in stock, so I was able to pick up one that was really good in condition, so that was cool. And now we bring ourselves to both regular Hammerslam Bowser and for Clown Cruiser. So this is when I got Scarlet Superchargers Racing for the Wii, because of course this was the only way, that was the only way even to get those figures. But Superchargers is notorious for making you haven't got several starter packs if you wanted to own everything. So I didn't only buy one starter pack for the Scarlet Superchargers Racing on the Wii. I bought two, so I could also get the Dark Edition of those two characters with Dark Hammerslam Bowser and his Dark Clown Cruiser in hand for you right there. My apologies about that cut right there, my card ran out of storage space, but as I digress, what happened next is that I was able to pick up both Double Dare Trigger Happy and his vehicle for Gold Rusher in the 39th episode of Skylanders Hunting, the second to last one mind you, because Double Dare Trigger Happy I travelled all the way to Sutton in Ashfield for, which turned out quite good on my behalf, because it was only 2 buses away and they was actually able to dig out the figure, unlike other CX stores which always tend to lose them. And this CX in particular had like 6 billion different Trigger Happies, so I'm glad they had for one that I was looking for specifically. But then when it came to the Gold Rusher, I did my longest cycle ever at an entire 7 miles in order to get to the CX at Corville, which is my second most local CX, as well as it is my second most local Argos, as I've mentioned about prior. But it was very cool to have cycled that far and to have been rewarded for said exercise with the Gold Rusher towards the very end of Skylanders Hunting right there. But that basically does it for the Superchargers collection. It barely all fits in frame right here, so that's why I'm kind of glad I pushed the switch and the speakers back a little bit. But now it's time to move on to the final game of the franchise, Imaginators. Before we move on to the final game, Imaginators, I do first want to mention a few Skylanders that I completely missed out on whilst I was going through their individual games, and that starts off with Series 2 Zoo Cascana, which I bought at a Cash Converters store alongside Mega Ram Spyro specifically. Then there was also Winterfest Lobstar, which I bought pre-owned at a CEX around for Christmas season of 2015 because it was appropriate. But moving on, I'm going to be talking to you first of all about 4 specific Eon's Elites from Superchargers, and that starts off with Eon's Elite Slambam, Eon's Elite Zook. I'm just really good at forgetting about the Zooks apparently. Then that's also going to include Eon's Elite Boomer, and last but not least, Eon's Elite Voodoo. So for Christmas of 2015 I got £60 from relatives, which I was able to get these 4 characters with for £15 each, but literally just a few weeks later all of the elites were reduced to £3 each, so I literally could have saved £12 per elite if I had just waited a few weeks, so that was a big whoopsie. But as I digress, during those sales I was able to pick up Eon's Elite Dynarang and Eon's Elite Ghost Roaster. Now I think the main reason why I rushed into getting all of the other elites so much was because at the time I never saw an elite from Trap Team on game store shelves, so I was just very excited to finally see an elite in the form of the Superchargers line on the shelves and really wanted to get my hand in some of that OP glory, mind you. But without further ado, let's get to Imaginators. Okay, so now with that quick little interlude out of the way, I can return my setup back to the norm because the Skylanders Imaginators collection is slightly smaller than the 3 preceding it. So as always, we're going to start off with the Senseis, which don't really have much of an interesting story behind them besides the fact that I bought them at some point. And we're going to start off with Tri-Tip, or Legendary Tri-Tip more specifically, and this one is quite interesting actually because I remember seeing him in the pre-owned section at Game once. I can't speak right now, but point is I was unable to afford him at the time, and my friend Faray was with me and he didn't have any money on him either, so he really regretted not being able to buy this character for me. But I told him there was no feelings or no hard feelings about it even, and there really wasn't. He didn't need to do that for me, but it was really kind and generous of him to think of me when we saw that figurine, and you know, it would have been very generous as well for him to have bought it. But it's a thought that counts, and I appreciated him a whole lot more for that, but we'll talk about Faray again later. For now, we're going to move on to Candy Coated Chopscotch, which I actually bought from the same CX that I did my Light Core Chill, so I completed my Giants collection on that day and got 1 Candy Coated Chopscotch along the way. Then next up is going to be none other than Legendary Pit Boss. Then we're going to have regular Hoodsicle, followed immediately by me punching the camera once again, but then it's actually going to be Steel Plated Hoodsicle. I actually bought these 2 in the exact same order, so very interesting how I got 2 Hoodsicles at once. In fact, I got both of the Hoodsicles at once, technically speaking. But next up we have none other than Pain Yada. Moving on to Jingle Bells Chompy Mage, for boring Christmas easy to find edition of him. Then next up we have ourselves 1 Airstrike. Then we also have Starcast right here, followed by 1 Solar Flare Roar, which I got from Amazon. Very interesting figurine, this one, to say the least. Then we also got right here 2 more to go, starting it off with Chain Reaction, and then we're going to be finishing with Chopscotch. So now we can move on into the stories. So first of all is going to be my day 1 haul, which of course I started off with a Wii U Dark Edition, so that came with Dark Kingpin, Dark Wolfgang, and then Dark Golden Queen to go alongside them all. Then we also have, then I also bought, even with money that I was saving up at the time, 3 additional Senseis, which included Ember, as you can see right there, alongside Ambush and Tri-Tip, as you can see right here. And then I also got a little pre-order bonus in the form of Chaos at the time, so yeah, that was very, very cool indeed. Also, he really does not fit in with the rest of the Skylanders now that I think about it, but regardless, So just before Christmas came around, the third wave of Imaginators hit, which meant that of course I could get my hands on a few Wave 3 characters such as Flarewolf and Buckshot, which were easily my most hyped characters from the whole of Wave 3, so I was very happy to get my hands on them quite easily indeed. But as I digress, after Christmas I got a bunch of money and I used that whilst the game had a 3 for 2 offer, so I got 6 senseis, one of which was for regular version of Bad Juju, and then as another villain I also got Wolfgang. Now what was really cool is that originally I had a fire creation crystal, but one of the game employees said, are you sure you want to get a fire creation crystal because you could get a free sensei rather than getting a free creation crystal? I'm like, no, you didn't have any others that I needed. And then one of them said that they had a regular Wolfgang in storage, so I was like, oh wait, I need that one. So they went back into the storage to go get that for me. So that shows a sharp contrast between the previous game employees I've talked about from my Giant stories, mind you, so it's really great to have seen that. But regardless, during that I also managed to get myself Barbella, Boom Bloom, which her whole pack for Enchanted opened for us were the same price as a regular old Sensei pack, so I got that for 15 quid, mostly because they weren't selling very well that Christmas season. Then there's also Aurora right here, who I also managed to pick up, and then last but not least there was the biggest surprise of the bunch, Mr. Cat. Well, I say the biggest surprise right behind Barbella. Anyway, now we return to Farah right here. So me and Farah saw a movie after school had restarted around February time-ish. And this movie was called Arrival. Very good movie, that I'd really recommend it. But after we saw the film, we went to our local Argos and I saw that they had this character Tycoon Crow in stock, and Farah was generous enough to buy this character for me because I didn't have enough money left at the time to get it myself. So it was very cool that Farah bought this figurine for me, and whenever I look at this figurine it reminds me of him. So very special figurine of mine, that one. But next up we have the time when Scarlet Hunting started, so that's begun, and this is one entire year later by the way. That would have been no, not an entire year later, about a month later actually, where Tycoon Crow would have been February of 2017 and then this would have been late February of 2017. So literally I got that guy just before I started filming for YouTube. But as I digress, I got Mystical Bad Juju in Toys R Us on the same hunting trip that I got my Big Bubble Pop Fizz, my birthday bash Big Bubble Pop Fizz from, even as well as the E3 Hot Streak that I was talking about before, my Superchargers haul. So yeah, very interesting how he went to Nottingham. Luke didn't expect me to find anything, and I found this rare figurine along with the other two I just mentioned. And on that hunting trip I also got a sent from game, because I was still a Skylanders Rewards member. I got sent in the mail a voucher for a free sensei, so I went to a second game that there was at Nottingham, something that I didn't film, and I managed to pick up a mystical Tycoon Crow for free because of that. So yeah, that was really cool. But as we move on, a few weeks later I managed to find myself one Dr. Crankcase at Argos once again for Scarlet Hunting, and I was looking for this guy in specific because he was the last element and last battle class that I needed for the Senseis and Imaginators. So very good hunting trip when I managed to acquire that character. But unfortunately on that trip I also came across the Wave 5 Skylanders, which were put on store shelves a little early, but at the time I didn't have enough money for them. Luckily for me, this was around the time where I did some painting for the neighbours and they was paying me in weekly chunks, so I only had to wait 1 week until I got an additional payment and was able to buy for both of these. So that was really cool. I got these Wave 5 characters very early before they even launched in America, and that was my main aim. But sticking with Scarlet Hunting, another character I managed to get during that series run was on Pancake Day. I found Pit Boss at my local CEX. That was pretty cool, mind you. Then when I travelled to Leicester, not only did I find the Sky Racing Pack from Superchargers, but I also found at Smith's Toys Superstore's Graveclobber, who was only a £5, and I remember getting this one very specifically because that Smith's Toys Superstores I had spent over 10 minutes, well not even 10 minutes, I think it was over an hour. I'm very bad at judging the time, as you can tell from when I was talking about Tycoon Crow before, but as I digressed, I spent about an hour looking for this character, and the whole time the case with his character in it was behind the manager's desk. But they were dedicated and would not stop until they found me this Skylander, and so once they finally managed to bring it to me and they had located it, I was so happy. and I was glad that they never gave up on finding the Skylander, so that was very, very cool of them. But as I digress, once again I was sent in for post some vouchers for some free senseis, but this time around I was able to get 2 entire characters for free, so I managed to get from that both of the Easter characters. So yeah, I got hard-boiled Flarewolf even, and Egg Bomber Airstrike from that. Very, very cool. Although I only have, as of recently, got the Soul Gem for Egg Bomber Airstrike, because I have, as of only recently, got the Griffin Park Observatory. But as I digress, we're now jumping from Easter of 2017 to Christmas of 2017, when I got a Nintendo Switch, and with my Christmas money I was looking to get new Switch games rather than buy some more Skylanders, but that didn't stop me from picking up the Nintendo Switch starter pack for Skylanders Imaginators, and I asked the people at the cashier how much the starter pack was going to cost me, and when they said £15, I was shocked. It was so cheap, and I was so happy to have picked up Imaginators for the Switch at that time, and have even got myself Kingpin and Golden Queen, as you saw before you. But now that leaves the final 3 Skylanders of the collection, and they just so happen to be the most expensive 3. So the first one I got from the bunch was Robo, because Nolan, the Portal Master, this is one of his favourite Skylanders, and he was telling me for ages that I should hurry up and get my hands on this guy, so I was able to get him from eBay for about £55. Not terrible value, mind you. But I still was missing 2 of them. So next up came the Kirstiki Temple, which I got for £55 as well. It was hilariously the same seller. Of course, got that a few months later because I had to save up my money once again. But finally, I needed one last Skylander, that one rare and elusive green Chompy Mage. And I tell you what, when I was able to buy him at long last, I got so excited, because this was one of my last characters from Imaginator, sure, but also after I got this character, I think I only needed 5 more Skylanders, which were the 5 from Trap Team that I was talking about previously. And he may have cost me £60, but he came all the way from Germany, so a grand majority of that was from shipping, but I was so happy to get my hands on this guy at basically an incredible price, because you take away the shipping, you're paying £50 for that character, which is near enough a bargain. So yes, that completed my Skylanders Imaginators collection, and very nearly completed my entire Skylanders collection. Normally, seeing this shelf again would mean that the premiere is over, but be sure to stay tuned, because I have my magic items, traps and chase variants to add to the collection showcase after this, just like I promised you at the very beginning of the premiere. But for right now, however, I just want to acknowledge the fact that the previous collection showcase that premiered this same time last year was a celebration of 250 subscribers. Since then, I've gained over 1,000 more. For the immense growth the channel has had over this past year, I truly can't thank you enough. I never would have pictured myself here when I made that initial collection showcase video. Back then, I'd have called you crazy if you told me I'd be at well over 1,000 subscribers in only a year. But that's the incredible reality I live in, and I truly appreciate every last one of you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. And now let's move on to the magic items, traps and chase variants without further ado. So as you can see, I'm now here with my traps. Now we've covered the figurine portions of all 6 games. I'm going to be recording this here portion in a different style to the video leading up to this moment, purely because, as you can tell, I have all of my traps already laid out before you rather than introducing them one by one. But regardless, we're still going to take a closer individual look at each and every one of them. Then we're going to take a close look at all of my magic items, and then we're going to combine the 2 for one glorious looking shot minded before moving on to the chase variants that we shall be concluding this video with. But regardless, of course, we have the Chaos Trap from the Dark Edition at the very back right here, and for the tech I have all 6 of them. You can say the same for the water elements, which this one right here is a little faded. For flying helmets, we'll probably get a replacement for that someday. Regardless, for life traps I only have 4 because I'm still missing the life snake and the life yawn trap, just like everybody else. And then for the undead, I have all 6 of those as well. You know, I kind of had to split those up a bit because the earth has bleeded into the undead column here. With the Easter bunny trap right here, then we have all of the 5 other earth traps, mind you. Then on top of that we have the 5 fire traps, excluding only for Yawn Trap, which is the only one I still am yet to own from the fire element, but I do have all 6 air traps, as you can see, and all 6 magic traps also. For magic rocket even is like a little faded, however, but I still own it all the same. So yes, that's for Trey. As you can tell, every single spot is used up, which is why these traps have been put to the side. Man, you have a regular chaos trap, then we have the light owl and the light rocket, and then we also have the undead, not the undead, the dark spider, the dark bunny trap, and then the dark sword. Now the light rocket is pretty rare, but I picked it up at retail. But really, the traps, they all have the same story behind them. I either bought them at retail or I bought them pre-owned. At some point, I bought them along the lines, and that's all what matters. So these are all legally mine. And yes, that basically does it for the trap portion of this collection video. As you can tell, I have several. I'm literally only missing the life snake, all 3 yawn traps, and that's about it, really. And so here we have all of my magic items. Now, for the most part, I got all of these with their accompanying battle packs and adventure packs. So any stories I've told you already from said adventure packs and battle packs basically apply themselves back to these toys as well as they do for figurines. So regardless, that would of course include examples like the Dark Light Crypt that my uncle got me for the very Boxing Day that came after the day that my grandparents got me Skylanders Adventure for Christmas of 2011. So yes, that story carries over, and the same can be said for the rest of them, but clearly I've gone through enough detail of this already. So we're going to start with Imaginators and work our way backwards as a way of course, shifting up the formula of this video a little bit. You know, we've gone from Spyro's Adventure through Imaginators, so it's time to do that in reverse for once. So at the back here we have the Griffin Park Observatory and the Enchanted Elven Forest. Now with the Enchanted Elven Forest, when I actually picked that up, it was during a season in-game when they was doing offers on Skylanders, so I could get 3 for 2 on that. So naturally that was cool. It meant I got a few free senseis when I went to go purchase the Enchanted Elven Forest. But what was cool was that there was actually some people, some customers of the game doing some trade-ins, to which they wanted to get more value from their games, but their cash that they would have got was about 115, whereas the voucher they would have got was 125, and I had 120 in cash. So basically I earned a fiver by giving them 120 in cash, and they gave to me from their trading credit £125, which I used to, you know, save on the Skylanders. So naturally it worked out as win-win. They got more cash than would have got otherwise, and I got an extra £5 in-store credit to buy all of the Skylanders I was getting to take advantage of the sale with. Either way, I have the Chaos Trophy, the Gone Queen Trophy, and the Wolfgang Trophy, which my first Wolfgang trophy was actually broken when I got a pre-owned pack of the Legendary Sky Racing pack, so I got a replacement when I got a completely brand new original Land Racing pack with, you know, the regular Astro Blast and regular Sunrunner, which was £3 at my local Smith. So huge, massive bargain there, and it means that the only trophy I'm still missing is that of the land iteration, with of course Moneybone as the mugshot for the trophy. Anyway, moving back to Trap Team, we have Sunscraper Spire, a piece that I got for free because my friend gave it to me, alongside the other Sunscraper Spire pieces. Then there's also the Midnight Museum, I bought that from CX, simply put. Then the Mirror of Mystery, the Nightmare Express, which I actually got for the Legendary version 4, which is where I can see the Legendary Hand of Fate and the piggyback. But then the regular Hand of Fate I actually ordered in from CEX and used that to justify the glorious reboot of the Skylanders vlogging series. So yes, because of this little guy, that reboot came to be, because it's like I was going to buy this figurine anyway, so I thought that would be the perfect excuse to bring back my favourite vlog series on the channel. Anyway, we also have the magic items from the good old Mirror of Mystery as we move away for Dark Light Crypt's wing there. You can see the Rocket Ram and the Tiki Speaky. Then from Swap Force we have 2 backpack pieces for Magna Forge and the Arcane Crossbow, both of which light up. You know, you can see that better once I move the Scorpion Striker out of the way. And speaking of the Scorpion Striker, we have the Scorpion Striker from the Giants Battle Pack. As a reminder, I got that for £3 brand new at a market in Blackpool when I was on a holiday back then. Either way, we have the 2 Gerards, the regular Gerard and the Golden Gerard. Now the Golden Gerard, in which when I first placed in the portal, I was expecting it to be a chase variant, so I was pleasantly surprised to find out that the gold does actually appear in game. Either way, going back to Swap Force Miley, we have more adventure packs such as the Sky Diamond, the Battle Hammer and the Tower of Time, all of which I got was my biggest Skylanders Crystals haul ever from 2013 when Swap Force was released even. Getting Superchargers and Swap Force mixed up apparently. Regardless, there's also the Shipwreck Islands over here. Yep, with the Groove Machine and the Platinum Sheep as well as the Shipwreck Islands piece itself. So that means that now the last things to cover are Spyro's Adventure, because Giants didn't get any adventure pack levels, and instead when you put something like Dark Light Crypt in Giants, it was just a ported level from Spyro's Adventure placed into Giants. But you could play through it with the Giants at least, so it became worth revisiting those adventure pack levels to play with the new Giant characters and cores. So yes, on top of that you also got the Healing Elixir and Time Twister Hourglass with Dark Light Crypt. And over here the Pirate Seas came with the Ghost Swords and the Hidden Treasure. Then the Dragon's Peak came with the Winged Boots and the Sparks Dragonfly from the Legend of Spyro series. So yeah, another Spyro appearance outside of Spyro and Cinder for Spyro's Adventure. Then the Empire of Ice came with the Sky Iron Shield and the Anvil Rain. And finally, there is the Volcanic Vault, which there is actually treasures inside the Volcanic Vault. It's very hard to see with one hand, so just give me a sec. Okay, sorry about that cut right there, but as you can see, I have indeed managed to open up the Volcanic Vault. Inside it, you can see just, you know, little blue pieces of plastic. It looks pretty cool, but I did need 2 hands to open it, hence the cut and everything. But let's close that back down. Now, the most disappointing thing about that piece is that it's as rare as it is, and yet all it does is give you a new battle arena that's basically a reskin of the Aqueduct from Spyro's Adventure. So it really disappointed me for the first time placing the Volcanic Vault onto the portal even, and realizing that that's all it did. Regardless, finally we have the silver hidden chest I didn't acknowledge until now. And here is why. Just you wait for this cut as I reintroduce even the traps into this glorious shot before you. Okay, so here are the traps reintroduced into the shot, mind you, and this is quite a glorious shot if I ever have seen it. Regardless of all that, going back to the silver hidden chest and why I left it until last, it's purely because this right here is a chase variant, and I didn't know about it. It's like a replication of a Volcanic Vault, to where when I put it on the portal, I was highly disappointed to see that this figurine was not translated into the game accurately. And so naturally, with this being the only chase variant from the entirety of the magic items lineup, I feel like this is a perfect transition, because after this, we are in fact going to be covering none other than the chase variants. So now that I've zoomed out back to this glorious wide shot, let's go on ahead and cut to those chase variants, mind you. And so here we have all of my chase variants all lined up, which just barely fit my desk, but as you can see, there are just waves upon waves of them back there. So don't you worry, we are going to take an individualistic look at each and every one of them. I just wanted to show how glorious they can all be in uniform here together alongside one another, mind you. But yeah, I even have in the background, for good measure, my legendary backpack, because that is part of the collection after all. So why the heck not throw that in for the sake of for completionist reasons of this video, mind you. So regardless, let's break these down one by one without further ado. So we're going to kick off the Spyro's Adventure part of this chase variant collection with Pearl Hex right here. So if we take a closer look at her back art card, we have the portal icon signifying even that this is from the Nuremberg Toy Fair 2012, and it's completely exclusive towards that. It's got an age rating of 6+, where the package has some minor damage to it, but that's just about where packaging damage even begins and ends. Of course, you can also play in video game and on the web. And like all Spyro's Adventure packaging, the logo is raised right there, you know, separate it from the back card a little bit more. My camera is awful focusing, mind you. Regardless, you can see the card at the back, Pearl Hex and her gloriousness. She even gleams from my light behind me, so that just goes to show how glorious she looks. Then there is, of course, her signature catchphrase, Fear the Dark, and because this is an American-based package rather than European-based. You have a translation, I believe, in French below it. Then, of course, you have a typical 1, 2, 3 where you take the toy, put it in the portal, play it in the game, the Activision logo, and for very factoid that this works with the Spyro's Adventure video game, mind you. Again, some more minor packaging damages, but regardless, the entirety of the bottom of this is green, just like the base of the figurine itself. So now, let's pop around the back. You have, of course, Scarlet Spyro's Adventure with a nice little protective sleeve that's going to help it if it was to be pegged up in a store, but this never was, considering its exclusivity to for 2012 even. Toy Fair of Nuremberg. I doubt there was a Toy Fair of 2020 considering what happened with the pandemic and everything. Regardless, you have traditional 1, 2, 3 once again. You have Hex's screenshot of the game, which is the same as her regular one, because once again, Hex is a chase variant, therefore she doesn't appear in the game, but she does on the figurine. You have the other undead Skylanders, and just a bunch of legal information right below there. So yes, that basically does things for Pearl Hex. You know, one of the few that we're going to go into true depth for, but as for the story behind getting Pearl Hex, I literally just picked her up from an eBay seller, some class. So next up is Silver Dynarang, just like Pearl Hex. I got him from an eBay reseller, and this one is rather glorious. The packaging again isn't of too much damage, fortunately enough, and then the silverness of the figurine is in fact incredibly glorious. You have Come Rang or Shine. This is actually a European packaging, hence the lack of translation. Anyway, 0 to 3 years old should not be utilising this toy because it has small parts and as a choking hazard. Regardless, there's also for traditional 1, 2, 3 and the Activision logo. Of course, this time they didn't bother labeling it as works in the Skylanders Adventure video game. Again, that's the difference between European and American packages, mind you. Then of course you have the back right here. You know, another big difference in all of the legal information and everything, but you still get the traditional 1, 2, 3 and Dynarang's in-game mugshot, you could go as far to say, as well as the other Earth characters alongside him. But yeah, I think that's a good enough in-depth look at how glorious this figurine is, so let's move on to the next. So next up is Blue Bash, yet another European package, because if it was American based you would have had the exclusivity to Toys R Us, stick it all over it. Regardless, as you can tell, I did have to glue the back, so that's where the damage from the packaging comes in. But you still have the gloriousness of this Sprocket Adventure logo. The actual figurine itself, of course, is signature catchphrase, and the 1, 2, 3 as well as the Activision logo. But you've had enough of looking at the damaged packaging right here. This actually came from the same seller as the Silver Dynarang, so I got 2 for the price of 1, which was gloriousness incarnate. Anyway, you have the usual stuff down the back right there, so not too much to differentiate it from Silver Dynarang, besides the fact that of course the Blue Bash looks distinctive and awesome. So next up we have Flock Stump Smash, yet another American based package. You can tell once again because you can play it in the video game. Then you have the Spyro's Adventure logo as always for backwards art card, and then as we move closer to the Flock Stump Smash, you can not only see from the texture and just how blocked it is, but it also looks almost like there's a wart on his nose, you know, similar to that of a troll almost. But yeah, even the base is flocked, you can see it at the bottom there. And speaking of what's at the bottom there, you have Drop the Hammer and the translation. And the traditional 1, 2, 3 for works with the Spyro's Adventure video game and the Activision logo. But moving on over to the back without further ado, you have Stump Smash and all the other life Skylanders, as well as the traditional 1, 2, 3, the legal information, and then the massive logo and the peg protector. So yes, that does it for Flock Stump Smash in his gloriousness. So now we get to move on to the Giants Chase Variant Collection, which is a lot larger, mind you. So next up we have what is officially named Colour Shift Gilgrunt, even though I accidentally call him Metallic Gilgrunt because he does have that metallic bronze type colour to him, but when you put him in warm or cold water he adjusts his colours appropriately, so naturally that's where the colour shift of the name comes from officially. Regardless, this is once again a European package. You'll tell as we work our way down it, so it's in pretty good condition. You can see the gloriousness that is Gilgrunt's art card. Backing up the entirety of the package. Then you have the figurine itself, the base of course having been adjusted appropriately. Fear for fish without translation, that's what makes it so European, mind you. The Series 2 icon of Trigger Happy Incarnate, the 0 to 3 for the choking hazard, and then off the other side, rather than having the Activision logo, you instead have legal information and the fact that this works in both Spyro's Adventure and Giants as a Series 2 figurine. And moving over to the back, you have of course the orange gloriousness, the peg protector, then for traditional 1, 2, 3 using trigger happy again as the series 2 signature icon. Then you finally have towards the very bottom, after all of the legal information, Gilgrunt's in-game mugshot, again the same as a regular Gilgrunt rather than what you see in physical figurine. After all, this is a chase ferret. Then you see Gilgrunt's fellow series 2s alongside Chill. So yes, a very cool package, this one, and one I am mighty proud of having in my collection, even if he is amongst the cheaper, more common chase variants, mind you. So next up we have yet another colour shift in the form of colour shift Shroomboom right here. So you have your traditional markings from Giants, then you have the figurine himself, and you can tell to the very right just where I had to glue this package back together, but regardless of look inside the package, its gloriousness incarnate, the figurine itself. Then you have of course the proof that this is American packaging with the catchphrase and the translation right beneath it, and the fact that the compatibility is on the complete opposite side of packaging to that of the European counterpart, because instead on the left side here we have the Attention, and then flipping over the package you have at the very bottom the legal information as well as Shroomboom's mugshot, several characters to collect alongside the life characters for traditional 1, 2, 3. That's much more bigger and doesn't feature trigger happy this time around. I suppose that's because this is a core and Jetvac is a core, just like Shroomboom from the game. But now, with that having looked at, let's move on to the next chase variant. So here we have an employee holiday edition Snowflocked Golden Prison Break, which I bought as a substitute for a lack of a 300 subscriber play button. But regardless, you have actually the top of the package being Snowflocked, which parallels the figurines. That's really cool to see. With it being a light core, you have a traditional light core card that is shiny and really gleams, as does the packaging, mind you. Just look how glorious that is. And not to mention, the characters symbolising light cores as Prison Break, which is appropriate because Prison Break himself is inside the packaging. And it says it doesn't work with Spyro's Adventure. It actually does. It just so happens that it's drawn with the Giants lineup. All of the light cores were automatically marked to work in Giants only, despite the fact that was not true. Anyway, you have the traditional 1, 2, 3 with the light core icon because they wanted to signify the importance in the light up feature when you place it on the portals. That's why it's, you know, kind of emphasized within that artwork. And then on the other side we have Warning and Attention. So this is obviously an American-based package because it went out to the American employees working on the game even. So yes, bring the Skylanders to life. You have the light core power, play anytime and anywhere with classic 1, 2, 3. Then you have fellow Earth characters, like the fact that this is a light core Prison Break, and yet light core Prison Break has been advertised on the back also. And then you have, you know, Skylanders Universe back when that was a thing, as you can tell from the logo right now. But yeah, Prison Break's in-game mugshot just for good measure. But now with that glorious package out of the way, let's flip it back over and move on to the next package without further ado. So here is Sonic Boom for Sparkle iteration. More specifically, you can actually physically see it sparkle on the side of the figurine right there. As I take a nice closer look at it, you can see the card in the background, and there is her art card as we usually like looking at, and then there's her full screen ahead with the rest of the packaging on the right side. And then as we move to the left, we have of course the fact that she's playable in both Spyro's Adventure and Giants. Then the back has your traditional Series 2 packaging with a trigger happy icon, trigger happy 1, 2, 3, and of course all of the legal information leading up to Sonic Boom's in-game mugshot and these fellow air characters you can collect even Jetvac, Lightcore, Jetpack and Whirlwind all on the back, and the Skylanders Universe logo once again. But yeah, that's the back in full, so let's flip this back round as we get ready to move on to the next package, mind you. Next up is the Gold Bronze Flame Slinger, the first ever chase variant I actually found in a store, but I didn't actually pick it up in the store. I picked it up later from an eBay reseller, but still I saw it in a store back during its original release, and it's still the only one to date that I've ever seen, so naturally I thought like that was an interesting story in and of itself. But taking a closer look at the figurine now that we've seen the back of the art card already, you know, you have your gloriousness as the figurine itself. Then on top of that, Let the Flames Begin, 0 to 3, the Activision logo, and the Series 2 and the 1, 2, 3 as tradition would serve, as well as the fact that this figurine is compatible with Spyro's Adventure and Giants. But moving to the back of the figurine, now that we've taken another glorious look at that back in artwork, you have Just your usual full packages like these, but you can't bother going over it again and again, especially since the back this time features the best Scarlet Igknight. Alright, here my camera's not doing the greatest job on focusing on it, mind you.
6 hours later.
And there you go, I finally managed to get the thing to focus on Ignite's gloriousness, but regardless, that's what makes the back of this particular package as grand as it is. But, you know, all focusing aside, you had, of course, the Universe logo at the very end there for me to point out. And now, with Flameslinger having been said and dealt with, let's move on to the next Chase variant package. Now here is the bronze hot dog from E3 2013 when they were showing off Swap Force, of course. Now the backing artwork looks glorious as always. The Giants logo is actually part of that artwork, which is why it's not kind of risen, unlike the Spyro's Adventure packaging we looked at earlier. Anyway, inside we can see the hot dog and all of its gloriousness, very prestigious. Then C-Spot Burn, it works with Giants only. And then there's Activision, and for 1, 2, 3, and when I say it works with Giants only, clearly that means Giants onwards. Either way, this is all American based because E3 is an American based event, so they never actually wound up packaging this in anything European. Regardless, you have once again for Peg Protector for 1, 2, 3, based around the core lineup, because this is once again a core from Giants. And speaking of it being a core, we have other characters being advertised for gloriousness that is Ignited once again, then Hot Dog's in-game mugshot, and all of the legal information to go around. But now my phone is going to stop covering up the gloriousness that is Hot Dog's in-game counterpart as we flip them back around and prepare for the next Chase variants for us to look at. Now, if this time around I said Chase variants, and that's because I have both Chase variant renditions of Fright Rider. As you can tell, this Halloween version is a lot worse for wear when it comes to his packaging, mind you, but it looks a lot worse in camera than it is in real life. But the Halloween figurine itself definitely stands out for the contrast in colours, much more so than the glow in the dark version. But yeah, this is a direct contrast between the American and the UK packaging. Just look, for example, at where you can find for compatibility, for legal information, for classic 1, 2, 3 and the Activision logo. And then once we flip these round to the backs, you know, this is where things are a lot more similar between the two packagings, bearing in mind that this is the American one and this is the UK one. The difference here is that we have different translations here rather than play anytime and anywhere. You have, you know, for laptop as well as for phone, and then the in-game mugshot and all the characters being advertised, which are the same for either of them. And yes, there is just far less legal information on the UK one because we just have common sense, more of it apparently, is what I'm trying to emphasize here. You know, hashtag Americans clearly have less common sense than us because Scarlet said so. I am, of course, just prattling about. But yeah, that is the gloriousness that is my two Fright Rider Chase variants right here. Finally, from Giants, we have my blue metallic Chop Chop, yet another exclusive Toy Fair edition from 2013 this time round, and man, this one is sweet. What's cool is that this Toy Fair was actually European based as well, so you could have got it in Europe, as you can tell from said European packaging, because not only do we have the exclusivity portal icon, but as we work our way down, you can first of all see the gloriousness that is the metallic blue colours and how nice and distinguishing they look. But the packaging has no translation, but it does have the Series 3 for Choking Hazard, the Activision for 1, 2, 3, and the Series 2 acknowledgement, and there's the compatibility works. And moving to the back, we have, of course, the in-game mugshot for undead characters being advertised, the universe logo, the legal information, and then several translations to boot, as well as your traditional 1, 2, 3 from Trigger Happy, which you can even see in the background from my legendary backpack that I've kept there as we look through all of these Chase variants, my dude. And you have, of course, the Peg Protector, but I love the fact that the Giants packaging is orange. You know, it gave the Giants its own distinguishable colour palette to distinguish these packagings more so from Spyro's Adventure. So yes, this is definitely gloriousness. But now with Giants having been covered, let's move on to Swap Force without further ado. Firstly, from Swap Force, we have my American metallic Sprocket. Now I could remove the sticker up the top here, but I don't want to. I want to keep that authentication behind it. Either way, the back and artwork is awesome. You have the Series 2 line on the side of it. I much prefer that to emphasize the Series 2-ness from the Swap Force packaging than what we got from the Giants, but it's also plastered on the side as well in case the back and card itself wasn't obvious enough as is. And you have the classic 1, 2, 3, the Activision logo. The bottom is blue this time because that's the bottom of the bases of the accompanying figurine of said packaging, mind you. Either way, Heavy Duty Sprocket, now that reposters were given their own names to work within Swap Force for figurine up close and personal is glorious, and that's also allowed us to focus in on the art card right behind her. Then there's, of course, for translations and the attention that you get standard from American packaging, and towards the back you have green, which is of course the colour palette of Swap Force to distinguish it from Spice Adventure and Giants. But again, up close and personal with this, you have elemental icons scattered all over everything for classical 1, 2, 3, Heavy Duty Sprocket's Mugshot, first series 2 iteration once again, and the fact that this works with Giants, Swap Force, but not Spice Adventure unfortunately. And then we have, of course, all of the legal information to top off the figurine with. So yes, that's the gloriousness that is my metallic looking Heavy Duty Sprocket right here. Next up is Scorp. This guy has a catchphrase that's far too easily meshed in with Swarm, so to say it, just making it a little less memorable from a catchphrase standpoint, but you still have the traditional works in Swap Force and nothing else. This is very clearly, once again, European packaging which is highly damaged. For backing card is coming away from the rest of the plastic molding. And then you have the fact that this art card is also bent, but regardless, moving to the back, without further ado, you have the Swap Force logo, the peg protector, the 1, 2, 3, this time featuring countdown rather than stealth off, because this is a core from Swap Force. Then you have Scorp's in-game mugshot, and rather than having the figurines being showcased being of the same element, you instead have Slobbertooth, Bumble Blast, Lava Lance, Rupture, and Light Core, Star Strike from all different elements, mind you, makes it feel a lot more inclusive, this packaging. So yes, what some awesome packaging this is, despite the damages, mind you, but I love the fact that the eyes in particular are still black. It still creates some sort of contrast to really make the figurine distinguishable even. But yeah, we've looked at this for long enough, so let's move on to my final Swap Force Chase variant, mind you. Finally, from my Swap Force lineup of chase variants, we're ending off with a bang, since we have a Swapper chase variant known as Silver Gold Stinkbomb. So first of all, the figurine itself is glorious. You can actually see the art card right below it. But yeah, you have, of course, the swappability arrows that you can just barely see through the plastic, the Swap Force logo, and of course Stinkbomb's artwork, and the fact that you can look at different combinations just as you can with any traditional Swap Force package, mind you, so you can see what Stink looks like with the Rise bottom half, for example. Now we finally move back to the Rouse, which we had originally. So going to the back of the packaging here, Blast Zone and Wash Buckler can become Blast Buckler, which looks just like that in the game, mind you. Very cool. You have the peg protector right at the top of it. Several swappers being advertised right here: Magna Charge, Free Ranger, Rattleshake, Hoot Loop, Boom Jet, Night Shift, Grillagilla, and Fire Kraken also. Then you have 0 to 3, and the fact that you've got to be cautious of the magnets right here. So yes, that alone makes it all very awesome, and you can tell this is European based packaging based on just how many translations you can see between different European languages, mind you. But yep, you can still see for elemental icons like Magic, Tech, Fire, Undead all back here, and for gloriousness, green colour palette that Swap Force is known for. And then finally moving back to the figurine, we have the swappability, which is Sneak. The fact that this is from the gimmick team that is known as the Swap Force, with air quotation marks and everything. Then there is, of course, the swappable 1, 2, 3-ness of the situation, which I'm pretty sure isn't a phrase until I said it was. Anyway, Clear of the Air, which is in fact Stinkbomb's catchphrase. Then for Life icon for his element, as well as for legal information based around the European packaging to match that of what we've seen already. So regardless, that is Stinkbomb right here, my final Swap Force chase variant. So now let's move on to Trap Team without further ado. Now Trap Team was very limited with its chase variants. It chose to only give us 3 to collect, and I so happen to own all of those 3, and they actually kept the Traptinian weapons as their traditional colours, as well as the eyes not being coloured in to create that nice sharp colour contrast between the rest of the crystalline type figure. You can see that with Thunderbolt right here as part of the Ultimate Trapper's insignia, and then the figurine itself and the art card below looks glorious. You can of course see straight through packaging based around the Trapmaster style, which is of course insignified from the top of packaging here. You have the Trap Team logo and the Traptinium look with the air element in combination with one another to make for the awesome Trapmaster based packaging. Then on the back you have the traditional mugshot, other air elemental characters being advertised, and then you have the logo again, because once wasn't enough, a peg protector right here, and then a 1, 2, 3. So yes, all of that up close and personal looks just like all that, mind you. But yes, I love the fact that we can see all 360 degrees of this chase variant, as well as the fact that it only works in Trap Team, unfortunately. But yeah, that was Thunderbolt. So moving on to Shortcut, we can of course do the exact same thing. He has all of the blacks from the Undead element, mind you, and how that element is colorized. Regardless, that's for package all close and personal, or all up close and personal even, from both sides. My apologies for my constant stuttering, and I just wind up knocking both these chase variants down, mind you, because of the fact that the very bottom has, of course, this outward sticking peg, I want to call it. But yeah, it is still balanceable. So unfortunately, the back of this Tough Luck has a tag from Toys R Us on it, where this would have originally came from before I bought it from a reseller on eBay. So you have the Trap Team insignia and some damage packaging, unfortunately, but that's where the damaging begins and ends for this package, because once again it's green for the life element, like Tough Luck's element, which you can see from her right here at the bottom, and the ultimate trap insignia once again. And what's funny about this catchphrase is your lucky day is that it's not her finalized catchphrase, because Tough Luck was clearly changed through production as her catchphrase later on became deal with it, rather than what was printed on packaging originally. I've waited as our Toys R Us tag I was talking to you about earlier, for mugshot for other live characters being advertised, and then right at the very bottom you can see that Tough Luck card, which now that I've flipped it around, you can see it the appropriate way flipped up, and you can see shortcuts as well back here. Now that both of those packages even are in frame, I once again inserted just for good measure, but regardless, those are the Trap Team chase variants. We're going to skip straight past Superchargers because I don't have any chase variants from that game, so let's get to it without further ado. So kicking off the Imaginators lineup of chase variants we have Starcast. Now I can't wait to go in depth with this packaging because it is glorious. So first of all, for Figurine, because it's crystalline, is completely see-through near enough, except for the eyes, which again makes it look more distinguishable and have somewhat of a contrast, mind you, and emphasize the eyes themselves. Either way, a shot on the Darkest Disguise catchphrase, he's a Dark Ninja. And fun fact, this is actually for packaging from my original Starcast, but I just took a loose chase variant for crystalline Starcast that I won at auction on eBay and placed it into this original packaging for Starcast, because there is no difference. Either way, you have the fact that this is a Sensei Scarlet, the Imaginators logo, 6+, and then a nice little art piece at the top up here. But yeah, what made all of this possible, taking a loose crystalline Starcast, also the fact that this packaging, you can take these characters out and then place them back in, thanks to just how accessible for packaging is to open up and maintain it as mint condition, mind you. Either way, the side has not only more of Starcast's artwork, but also the fact that it only works in Imaginators. And then you have Toys to Life for traditional 1, 2, 3 with Kingpin this time, because he is of course the icon of the senseis. Then the Activision logo for website where you can get more information, and again Starcast's artwork mirrored. And then the back is where things get interesting. You have the black, which means that this translucent render looks all more glorious of the Imaginators logo, mind you. But yes, this is Master Starcast we're talking about here, with a mugshot of him in the game, several different translations. As you can tell, this is European packaging, especially with the 0 to 3 for Choke Hazard, and then the traditional 1, 2, 3 as you take the figurine, put them on the portal, and then they appear inside the game, mind you. So yes, what glorious packaging. I managed to break down for my Crystal Starcast right here. Again, I won him at auction on eBay because it was a loose figurine. I simply took my original packaging from Starcast and placed the crystalline variant inside of it. So next up is my pink blue Barbella. Unfortunately, it's barely pink nor blue, it's more so crystalline at this point, because this one was faded from constant exposure to sunlight. At least that's what the eBay seller told me. You can tell that the bases are actually the exact same for senseis, unlike the previous Skylanders chase variants that had their bases changed up for them. Regardless, you have Master Barbella, it's crunch time as an Earth Sentinel, and up here it's a Sensei Skylander from Skylanders Imaginators with a 6+. So yes, you have her mirrored artwork with the traditional 1, 2, 3, the Activision logo, and for website information. Then there's of course the Imaginators tick to show it's compatible with that game and that game only. For mirrored artwork once again, which, because you can see straight through it, you can actually see not only for chase variant, but for once again the backpack. So yeah, that's all gloriousness. The eyes are once again white to create that contrast and emphasise the eyes of the character. Up top we have the artwork as we always do, and then the back is just like Starcast with the 1, 2, 3, but this time of course we have Barbella's mugshot because that's how she looks in the game, mind you. So yes, now that will be said, done, never actually got to check out the back of the packaging. That's purely because it's not the most interesting. It's the same stuff you'd regularly see for barcode, mind you, more legal information. And then if we flip this around, we can see even more logos such as this, which means that basically whilst the packaging itself is not recyclable, the packaging has been made out of recycled materials. So in other words, when they were producing this here packaging, they created carbon offsetting to reduce their carbon footprint on the environment. So yeah, that was pretty cool. You of course have the fact that you can't bin these due to all of the different materials inside of them, and the fact that plastic naturally takes years to biodegrade. But yeah, that's basically Master Barbella for you. It's a crunch time. And now here we have my final chase variant to showcase. After this, we're going to go back to the entirety of the collection, as you saw beforehand when it comes down to the chase variants themselves. But for now, we have yet another employee exclusive edition, 6+. Then you have the Imaginators logo. You have the Sensei Skanda, which, you know, has artwork similar to that of the figurine itself, and man, the figurine is glorious. You have white decked over the base, you have in the background instead candy canes and, you know, snow themed stuff to go alongside the fact that this is a holiday themed variant, mind you. It even has a pun in the name because this is Master December, as in December, Fan the Flames, and of course the translation, because this is American based. You have the same for the Fire and the Sentinel down there below, and it's all flocked up in snow at the top. And then the top of this artwork is red rather than black, and the transparent render of Master December on top of it all. So yes, this packaging is different because it's actually unique to the chase variant, and so it's so cool that they went through all of this effort to change up the packaging, despite the fact that when you place this chase variant on the portal, it's the same as her railway counterpart. But man, I would have loved to have seen this in game because she's just so glorious. I think we deserve another look at her personally, because just the blues, the pinks, the oranges, they have such a sharp contrast. It's glorious. And luckily for us, with the mirroring back here, the logo, you can see her from different angles thanks to the natural translucency of the plastic. But yeah, there's less information on this one than the UK one, so they've done the complete opposite of what the previous UK packages had, because normally the UK packages have less information because apparently we have more common sense than the Americans. But this would be for direct juxtaposition toolnet. Regardless, bring the Skylanders to life, and this is definitely a very lively package with a red contrast for elements you can see embedded within the packaging, and the snow once again flocking the top. The 1, 2, 3 to signify that you can take the figurine, put them in a portal and play them in the game. And Master December Fire Sentinel, once again, there's her in-game mugshot. Not the same as the figurine because this is a chase variant despite the swap up in the packaging, mind you. But yeah, this whole thing just all in unison makes this figurine just look really special and really nice. You know, employees were very lucky to get this, and I'm even more luckier still to have got this from a reseller on eBay. So Skylanders Academy, you know, you can now stream for 3 seasons of that. You have several senseis being, of course, advertised. Grave Club and Bad Juju aren't referred to as masters because they are rehabilitated villains even. Once again, stuttering for good measure. But yeah, you also have Water Life and Undead Creation Crystals, 30+ Skylanders to collect, and Skylanders.com with the Activision logo and the PO box, mind you. So yes, this is all glorious. You even have Christmas lights as well as the snowflakes, you know, the candy canes. This is just one rather incredibly Christmas themed chase variant, which I could not ask to end off this video on a more nicer note with. So yes, now this is all being said and done, let's flip on back to the entirety of the chase variant collection, mind you. Here I am, drawing for full circle as I said I would. Anyways, I sure hope you enjoyed this here premium collection showcase, which corrected the faults of that original collection showcase video I created 1 year back. Of course, the biggest offence of said original collection showcase video was its lack of HD, but luckily you can't say the same this time around for this premium collection showcase. After all, it's literally been incorporated to the title how crisp and glorious the HD of this video has been. It took me several days to render and export this video, but I'm sure in the long term it was worth it. And now, with all of that being said and done, thank you all so much as always for watching, and until the next video arises, peace.